It's actually a lot more complicated than it sounds.
You can do push-ups. It doesn't really matter what your workout routine is, but if you don't have enough energy to do it, you're be exhausted. You're gonna hurt yourself. You're not gonna get any gains. You're not gonna do anything. So the fact she does yoga is interesting, but the fact that she doesn't constantly work on the upper body is which I don't get. Because if that sort of workout routine for a woman, her upper body should be focused almost entirely. Because as soon as you go back to the cardio, as soon as you do lower body, you're going to be more balanced. And she's not balanced. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. I think we're going to start now. I hope everyone is having a great, just humid Friday. I don't know how everyone's doing in other parts of the world, but it is absolutely rocking here. Over 30 degrees centigrade in Toronto. So we have some water nearby. And you guys want to take a break, bathroom break, get a drink, go right ahead, no problem. Totally cool. Just take it easy. Take a nap. Whatever siesta you do, whatever part of the world, just do it. It's a hot day. Don't overexert yourself, okay? Anyway, welcome back, Shiny and Southpaw. We're doing part 2.
Hello.
Of Nathan Zed, and this is supposedly the best response or the best defense or whatever you want to call the fan response to liking The Last of Us 2. So yeah, it hasn't been very enlightening too much. It's been mostly subjective and headcanoning why he thinks characters are the way they are, why they're good, and why certain they feel empty. They want to fix something in themselves because every character's like that. I'm like, okay, that's an argument to have, but the weakness of the narrative and the dialogue don't really showcase all of that. Everyone's kind of gray. Everyone's kind of messed up. That doesn't mean they're striving for some kind of ethical framework or ethical rebirth. They're just sort of getting by, and that's pretty much what Abby's storyline is. She's just bouncing around, doing this and doing that. And life is good. She has a few nightmares, and then they get better. She has better dreams. And she saves some kids. So, sadly.
Hello again.
Hey, voice.
I've returned for part 2.
Yes, we have 10 minutes left. We can get by this no problem. The problem was, for me, when I watched the first time, it was the second half that really slowed me down because I was just like pausing and pausing and pausing. So hopefully it won't be that bad with us. But it should be. It should not be that. But we know where his head is at, so that's the good part. We know where he's coming from. Okay, let's get going.
Ellie. What's that? A spoiler, Gator? Super duper duper spoilers coming your way right now.
When we've come to the end of the game, we finally get to Abby, and she is a shell of her former self. Her muscles are gone, bro. What a waste. It's so sad to see, but her muscles are gone, and her head is shaven. She looks terrible. The first thing she does after you cut her down is she goes and grabs Lev, and it literally is just a parallel of how you were at the end of the last game after you grabbed Ellie and are trying to take her away. Ellie is about...
Sorry, what?
How long do you think they were up there? A couple weeks? A couple days?
More than that.
It was certainly at least a couple of days.
If it had been a week, they'd have died of dehydration.
Right.
You would think.
Especially if they're out on a beachhead with the sun shining down on them all day.
That's the problem with this whole scenario. We don't know what the heck the slavers are trying to do and why are they hanging people up, and is this a torture? Is this to leave them to die? Like, what's going on?
Why did they capture people again? I've forgotten. Are they building something, or
they trap slaves and they keep them for, I guess, manual labor? We don't know.
Reasons? Yeah.
No, well, if you're keeping them for manual labor and you're letting their muscles, die, they're almost dying of starvation, then you're probably not keeping slaves very well.
I'd also just like to point out that there is such a thing as sea spray. Sea spray refers to aerosol particles that are formed directly from the ocean, mostly by ejection into the atmosphere by bursting bubbles at the air-sea interface. Sea spray contains both organic matter and inorganic salts that form sea salt aerosol. So that should also be like further dehydrating Abby, right? If you're like constantly breathing in salt from the air.
If they're up there to die, then surely they should have died way before her muscle mass had had time to disappear.
I mean,
Unless
it's
her muscle mass
possible.
disappeared
Well,
before she was tied up.
it's
It's possible
unclear.
they force feed her. I have no idea about that.
But why
well,
would they
the-
force
the
feed her
problem-
on the stick if they're
so-
intending to kill her?
No, so the problem with this whole game's ending is that it's not very clear as to how much time passes between Ellie leaving the farm and her getting to California where the climax takes place. So
Sorry, by the way, Shiny, can you turn your volume up? People say they can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, go. Please continue.
There we go. Does that sound better?
Much better.
that
Yes.
sounds a lot better, yeah. So the thing is, surely a decent amount of time passes between Ellie leaving the farm and her ending up in California. So it's possible that during that time, maybe Abby is not on the pillars, but she's like in the cages, and none of the prisoners for the Rattlers appear to be well fed in general. Like, they all seem pretty skinny. So I don't think that they feed their slaves as much as, you know, Abby would. Abby's not getting as much food as she would need to keep her gains, is what I'm saying here.
Right.
But she
So
doesn't have enough food to keep her gains in the first
it's-
place.
well,
Well,
yes,
it's
but
possible. What I'm saying here is, so it's possible that she's not up on the pillars for weeks. It's just that she was a prisoner for the Rattlers for at least some time. It's just undetermined because this game does a really terrible job at giving you like passage of time in between time jumps.
So the assumption is that because she's emaciated, she's burning off all this body mass, and plus her arms are pretty much destroyed from being hung up all day. So we don't know the procedure. We don't know how much time has passed. We're talking about traveling from Seattle all the way down to California on boats.
Oh, there's actually Fat Geralt. Apparently, when Ellie is interrogating him before she kills him, he may have said something about how they captured a girl that of like matching the description that Ellie gives him.
Yes.
Arms as big as mine, he says, like months ago. So it's been at least months since we see Fat Geralt come in and punch Lev and capture Abby, and then the climax occurring.
Yeah, but Lev should have been dead. If this is the same amount of time, if they treat them exactly the same way, Lev is a little girl, and I don't know, 13 or 14, and she does not have the body mass to just sit there and starve. So,
well, we don't know how long they've been on the pillars,
right? But if they did that to Abby, there's a pretty good chance they also did that to Lev.
I mean, did what, like the
left them there.
Sorry, what?
If they just left them there, like that's the impression I get. They just left them there to die.
So what happens is, like when you get to when Ellie gets to the Rattlers' basement where they keep all of their prisoners, right? She's asking for where Abby is, and then they say, they know who Abby is. The prisoners know who Abby is. They say that Abby tried to escape recently. She's on the pillars. She might already be dead. So it's not like they automatically took them to the pillars. There's cages where people are being kept. There's apparently an off-screen escape attempt that Abby did that resulted in them being put on these pillars to punish them.
Right, and we don't know if that was the first time or they do other things to them as well. Like, we don't know.
Yeah, we just don't have a whole lot of information because the game's like rushing to get to the end here because it's already gone long enough.
And I'm trying to question whether that was the whole point of giving her these massive arms in the beginning so that they can show her that she can survive in this, I don't know, crucified style for however long, and you see her weakened. It's like, okay.
I mean, they really didn't have to do that. They could have done something else.
Oh, of course.
If she had a regular amount of muscle mass throughout the whole game, she would have been a skeleton during the climax.
Yeah.
So it's like she's very muscular for most of the game, ridiculously muscular. And then when you see her again, it's like, yeah, she's somewhat emaciated, but not to the same extent as like a Holocaust survivor would be, you know?
Plus, there's the whole thing of when you free those slaves, their guns and what have you are right outside their cell. And same with the boats, like they're right next. The boats are fully gassed up. They just got to jump in the boat from the pillar. It's just everything's so convenient. There's no.
Oh yeah, it's very strange how they have the boats just right there.
It's like, oh, we're gonna go now. It's like you're like literally meters away from a boat. Okay.
About to just leave until she sees one last flashback of Joel beaten to a bloody pulp, and she's like, all right, this has to, I can't keep doing this, and she goes to kill Abby. Now what does Ellie need to get her peace? It's killing Abby, right? That's what she tries to do the whole game, so it must be killing Abby. No, for me, the whole game isn't.
Well, I mean, is that a grave mistake? It's like, if so, I think the story doesn't connect to me. The characters don't act in ways that make sense to me. But apparently, that's just because they lack common sense, or what I consider to be common sense. But what I consider to be common sense is obviously becoming less and less common these days. I feel like if he just goes along with it, I guess, if he's turning his brain off here, or not even necessarily that, like, I don't think that you're an idiot if you think that this is a well-written game. I obviously disagree with you. I don't think that you're going to provide a very compelling argument for it, but I understand the feeling of playing through a story, playing through a video game, watching a movie, whatever, and missing like all of the writing issues just because you're just so into it, I guess. And if the game manages to capture his immersion to that effect, good for him, I guess. I think in him saying, for me, I don't think that's a mistake. That's just more of like, he's just trying to disclose that, yeah, for him, the game got the intended effect out of him, I guess.
No, he's interpreting exactly what happened. We know what happened during the story. We saw what Ellie does. We saw what Abby does. It's very clear what Ellie is trying to do. It's very clear what Ellie's friends are trying to do. They're all, he even admits to it. It's to get Abby, right? And he says, no, to me, it's not about that. It's like, I don't care what you think it's about. I want you to know what you know it's about. What did your eyes and ears tell you? What did they show you? And it shows a woman going across Seattle slaughtering people, killing everyone involved. She even says that to Dina. She will kill anyone involved, even if they weren't pulling the trigger or what have you. So we know why Ellie's doing this.
Yes. My point was just like, that's what we're seeing because we're taking it maybe more literally than he is. So in Mahler's TFA Part 3 review, he mentions the scene where Aragorn wields, I believe it's Anduril for the first time, and he breaks down the significance of that moment in a very poignant way, I guess. For the average person, that scene is just a guy drawing a very long sword, but there's more meaning to it than that. I think that this guy has he has found an interpretation of the game to make it more than just revenge. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. I'm just trying to like understand where he's coming from, and I'd be interested in seeing what he's meaning to say here.
Sure.
About killing Abby, but it's about getting closure for Joel's death and forgiving him. Just like the first game isn't.
Okay, yeah, no. So, all right, I rescind my statement. So, at the very end of this game, we finally get okay, so we're experiencing flashbacks that Ellie is having of her relationship with Joel, and the highs like at the museum, and then the lows, like when she finds out that he had been lying to her about there was like other people with the immunity to the infection. And then the final flashback of the game is her having a discussion with Joel about wanting to forgive him. So showing the the progress that their relationship made from like its loving father and daughter relationship to like it's basically toxic and she wants nothing to do with him, sure, like you're showing us bits and pieces of the puzzle as to like what's going on in her mind, but I'm not really feeling that character development as she is trying to process what he did and forgiving him, because the game is doing this non-linear storytelling that's there to maximize the amount of surprises and twists to the viewer, whereas linear storytelling, the benefit of that is showing more of a logical progression in the character development. When you have non-linear storytelling, we're not going to have the context that we like, in playing through most of the game, you don't know about that conversation that Ellie and Joel have the night before he dies. So we're not seeing the character development in Ellie throughout the game until that, really at all. Like, so you get to that final moment, I guess, like, you'd have to play through the game again, but from my recollection of playing the game, I didn't actually feel like there was much focus on Ellie forgiving Joel. Now, it could be, maybe I'll play the game a second time and I realize, oh shit, there's actually stuff that I missed because of that added context, because of that twist with Ellie and Joel's final talk. But keep in mind, I had been spoiled about the game, and I had seen those cutscenes, and I didn't feel that at all as I was playing it.
There is no reference to Ellie trying to forgive Joel, or that being her motivation throughout the entire story until you get to the end. And for him to say, this is what the story was about, you're like, no, it's not. It's clearly not. The ending could have been about that, and that might have been her realization. But you don't suddenly say, oh, you know what? I really feel like having a tomato. I'm going to drop this banana in my hand. Or I really want to do this other thing, but I should probably finish what I'm doing right now. It's two different things.
Yeah, I agree, because for most of the game, Ellie is focused on getting revenge against Abby. And for the game to then just drop this memory of her and Joel having a talk on this porch, and she's like saying, I want to try to forgive you, and suddenly say, and that's what the theme of the story is, it's about forgiveness, is like, it just feels like it's a shocking swerve. It just comes completely out of nowhere, and it doesn't feel like this is set up. It doesn't feel like this is properly built up to and then earned, like if we had the knowledge of, if they showed that flashback much earlier in the game, and we got to sort of see Ellie's thought process in forgiving Joel for lying to her, or whatever, like if that was the point of the game, then I think that what Nathan Zed here is saying would be valid, but that's not what we really see. It really does come out of nowhere at the 11th hour of the game,
which is a flashback which we should have seen, I think, way before all this ever happened. If she's going to start getting a change of heart, like this should have been like flashback number 1, after she wakes up and she thinks of Joel and she can't forgive him because, again, he's dead. So she's like thinking about Joel, that thing she wanted to do with Joel. She can't do it anymore. She goes, damn it, now I got to go kill Abby. There's nothing else I can do about this.
It's not just that we also don't see that flashback until the very end either. It's just that, in general, Ellie's writing does not seem to take into account that they had that conversation.
Right, she totally forgot about it until right at that moment, for some reason. Even though,
like the worst possible, like the least likely possible moment for her to get that memory again.
Yeah, I mean, you remember Inigo Montoya, he's trying to kill Count Rugen. He's like, I'll give you whatever you want. Tell me what you want. Say, I want my father back, you son of a bitch. He knows exactly what he wants. He's had that image burned in his mind all these years. He's not even flinching about what he needs to do. Like, this is a man who's been... Maybe if you give Ellie, 30 more years or so, I guess she might feel that way. But it's just a silly thing that because you're tired, because you're barely awake. I don't know exactly how much blood she lost when she got impaled with that wooden branch. She got tied up at back in Santa... Where was that? Is it some sort of...
Santa Barbara.
Is it Santa Barbara? I don't know what part of Santa Barbara. Yeah, it's the same place that... pretty much where Abby was in Lev.
My other thing is, like, so she's been killing so many people to get to Ellie. Sorry, to get to Abby. And I'm just thinking, like, okay, so if the moral of the game is, hey, that random NPC that you were railroaded into killing in the first game, he had a daughter. Don't you feel bad? You're a terrible person. You murdered a girl's father, okay? And then you are killing countless NPCs to get to Abby. and suddenly we're supposed to forget about them, I guess. Like, do their families not matter?
Yeah, we could do all these because that's what he was saying. Let's see the flashbacks of the Seraphites. Let's see the flashbacks of all these. It's like, yeah, we could just keep delving into everyone's side and all of these conflicts, but there's no longer a central focus of this story. You're just telling stories. It's like that's not the point of this game.
So it just
obviously we know the next game is going to be based off of the person you killed in this one scene over there, well, they're coming for revenge now.
Yeah, it's going to be Fat Geralt's backstory. It's like, oh, here we go.
Fat Geralt's ex-wife is coming to kill you.
Is it really a sunk cost fallacy to just, finish off Abby after having killed so many people just to get to her? Like, you're right there. It's not just like a matter of, like, you may consider it sunk cost fallacy for like before she leaves the farm, I guess, but once you're at that point, you like, she has her, Ellie has her drowning, like, finish her off.
Yeah, I don't think she's doing a cost benefit analysis at that point, going, you know what, I went this far, if I kill her I don't get anything for it, if I like, it's like, no, you can't sleep. You can't eat. You've been doing this for at least a year or two. I don't know how long she's been pursuing, because again, she went back to the farm, which takes a few months, and then living there, living with Dina, growing crops and all that stuff. So that takes at least a year. And then she travels back to Seattle, travels back to Santa Barbara. So that's at least a year. And just gives up. It's very strange.
Leo Saunders says, I guess by the time she got to Abby, she just had enough. Usually before boxers clash, they don't like each other. After the fight, they usually develop mutual respect. So boxers are doing that professionally for sport, and they aren't doing it because, like, one of them killed the other's father.
You're also forgetting about the number of boxers that aren't sculpted like Mike Tyson. Do you remember the guy who beat... it was Cruz versus... Shit, what was his... I'm going to have to look it up, the boxer, because I love boxing, so... David Hay? No, it wasn't.
Is it a recent fight?
Anthony Joshua.
Okay.
Sorry, did you see the guy who fought Anthony Joshua and beat him? This guy called... I forgot his first name, Cruz. He looks like he watches his Monday Night Football and eats a lot of burgers. And he's a boxer, so yeah, I don't know. I think it's more complicated than that.
Here's a Gothic Cirolo. I don't know how to pronounce that last name, but I apologize. I found out I live in a made-up country. Uh-oh. One of our politicians stole his Day of Independence speech from the president's speech before attacking the aliens in the Day of Independence movie Spanish dub. Huh. I live in Argentina, by the way. What are we talking about? You're watching the Independence Day movie in Spanish, and your president stole the speech from that movie? Interesting. That's a...
We'll be living.
I mean, it's not unheard of these days to have...
There's worse speeches to rip from.
Yeah, there are worse. That's true. All right, let's keep going with Mr. Nathan.
Just about saving Ellie, but about Joel getting closure for his daughter's death, Sarah, at the beginning of the game. Stay with me.
Whoa, let's slow down there. Let's rewind. That's what the hell's he talking about?
Killing Abby, but it's about getting closure for Joel's death and forgiving him. Just like the first game isn't just about saving Ellie, but about Joel getting closure for his daughter's death, Sarah, at the beginning of the game.
But
Stay
he
with me
doesn't
for a
get
second.
No, it's not. It's not closure. That's just Joel being Joel because he's missing his daughter. He doesn't need closure for the death of his daughter. He's saying, listen, I'm about to lose another daughter. I can't let that happen.
The alternative would be that Joel goes through all of this and then he's told that Ellie's going to have to die, and then he fights all of his way there to go rescue Ellie, and then right at the table he doesn't pick her up, he walks out.
Well, so there is a section in the game where
He goes off and does another thing instead, because he's like, you know what, I've killed enough people. I'll let this daughter figure I have die.
There's parts of the game. So Joel obviously has a very difficult time talking about Sarah. There's a little bit of dialogue between him and Ellie, and like she basically almost prods him into talking about her, and he just like kind of drops the subject. It's regarding that movie poster. It was like a poster of a movie that he had seen with his daughter apparently, and he's just like trying to drop the subject. There's that morphs into like during fall, she's asking Joel like at the university, sort of about Sarah a little bit, and then she realizes, oh, is this too much? And he says too much, and she respects that. There's like a photograph that Tommy has of Joel and Sarah from before the outbreak that he had found and saved for Joel, and Joel turns it down when Tommy offers it to him, and then Ellie comes across that photo and hands that to him, and Joel accepts it. Like there's an arc there, but I wouldn't say that that's the point of the first game, or necessarily it is the reason why Joel saves Ellie, because I think I simply see it as Joel, like Sarah's always going to be a hole in Joel's heart. Okay, when you're a parent and you lose a child, that's always going to be there with you. I think that Ellie just simply represented a second chance for Joel to have that loving connection with a child, with a daughter. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it provides closure for his daughter's death.
I don't think closure was ever a problem for Joel. I really don't.
I think what they may be confusing is the idea that you can essentially become, so when you do lose someone like that, you do become unhappy because you lose it. Like, again, it is a hole in your life. But then he ends up becoming happy again by finding someone else to care about. And just because you find someone else to care about, to essentially make life worth living, it doesn't necessarily mean that the pain for what you've lost before is gone.
It's just a strange argument to make. You're really reaching to explain Joel's state of mind and what his story is now about, because his daughter died, and therefore that's the driving force of him saving Ellie. He doesn't need closure for his daughter. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's not blaming the circumstances of the whole zombie apocalypse, and therefore I must get a cure, so nothing else matters. Like that would be an argument if that was the case. But we know Joel. We know his character. We know why he behaved the way he did, and why the story went that way. He doesn't need to save Ellie to have closure on his daughter. They're totally different things. I don't like this weird explanation of juxtaposing dead people with other characters. It doesn't make sense.
I also don't see how Ellie forgiving Joel for lying to her ties in with Ellie forgiving Abby for murdering Joel.
That's a horrible juxtaposition. Like, what are you doing?
So I don't recall having any major issues with my dad when, like, by the time that he passed away, like any unresolved problems, but surely if someone had killed him and it wasn't just like an infection that killed him, like if someone murdered him in front of me and I did have a disagreement with him or something that we never resolved, I don't imagine that like thinking about forgiving him over that disagreement or like maybe that thing that he did wrong would tie in with forgiving the person that murdered him.
It doesn't make sense. Now, if it's like a religious thing, meaning she was taught by, let's say, Dina to forgive and forget, like some religious practice of Judaism or Christianity, and she says, listen, I went all this way to show you I'm crazy, but because I have friends, I know the meaning of life or whatever, I'm not going to do it. Something like that would be like, oh, so she's religious, or she found faith, she found peace, she found it her own way. that would be fine. But we still have to see that scene. We have to see that connect. We can't just get a flashback of a scene of the person and reason why someone is doing the thing they're doing just because it's a nice little scene. That doesn't translate to reality. It's like you having a flashback of your dead girlfriend who, I don't know, she smiled at you at dinner one time. It was, oh, very nice. Yeah, okay, fine. And she was brutally murdered by this person you've been pursuing. You don't just go, hey, I just remembered my dead girlfriend when she smiled at me. I'm going to forgive you. It's like, what? Why? It doesn't make sense. All we need to do is have these dots connect in whatever fashion. We had no connection. So if they even gave us that connection, there's nothing there. It's not for us to find. And to impose the supposed forgiveness to Joel from Ellie and the target being Abby makes no sense. So I don't like this argument that Joel is trying to find closure and therefore Ellie's trying to find closure as well. It's like, no, Abby's trying to find revenge. That's all it is.
It legit boggles the mind that there are people that feel like that plot point makes sense.
Yeah, it's like
it could just be a simply subjective thing. Okay?
No, it is. There's no other way. If Inigo Montoya goes up to Count Rugen, I want my father back, you son of a bitch. Hey, you know what? I forgive you. Like, what? No. He's been stabbed multiple times, sliced open. Like, what? I'm going to stop killing you now. It's like, what?
And I think that it's worth stressing there were ways that they could have accomplished this in a way that would have made sense to more people. So the fact that there's this many people that are saying it doesn't make sense, it kind of seems to indicate maybe they should have gone about this a different way if they really wanted to nail this theme.
It's the same argument with the narrative. If you're going to have a narrative which is geared towards one thing, why would you have the ending be interpretive? Why would you do that? Why not make the whole story interpretive if that's the point of the story? Sure, the ending is the culmination of that, but why would you suddenly have a different motif or a different style? It's like, hey, we're going to do a revenge story. Hey, we're doing a revenge story, and now we're not going to tell you what we're doing. But someone doesn't die. So it's like, wait, what? Thought this is a revenge story. It's a closure story? What's a closure story? I don't know what that even means.
It's also like, it's weird how, they're killing this many people, and it's only when they get to the finish line that they realize, oh, revenge is bad. It's kind of frustrating to see this happen over and over again in stories where a character is going on some pursuit of vigilante justice or revenge or whatever, and they'll kill, hundreds of faceless goons that are working for the person that they're trying to kill. And then once they get to that person, they realize, oh, if I kill them, I'll be just like them. What about all the people that you have already killed? You kind of already are just like them by this line of reasoning. Also, no, you're not just like them. This person, this is a person who shot out Joel's leg with a shotgun and then beat him to death while he was defenseless. Ellie, at the very least, even though I think that it doesn't make sense for her to do it, she frees Abby and challenges her to a mano-a-mano fight. Or mano-a-mano fight.
With a switchblade, so...
Yeah, she does have a switchblade, true. But it's just like, man, so if you're going to fight with a switchblade, why not just fucking stab her while she's defenseless? I don't get it.
It's the
Do
same.
You want a fair fight or not?
It's the same when Dina slashes her up. It's like the switchblade. She just uses her muscles. The switchblade just bounces right off. You're like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Why even have a knife? It doesn't make any sense.
Also,
Knives are subjective.
And also, again, regarding revenge is bad. So, in a modern day setting, sure, but this is not a modern day setting. This is a post-apocalyptic setting where there is no court of law, there is no justice system. Revenge is pretty much the only way that you can get justice in the setting. What is there is no justice for Joel's death. None.
That's generally what people need before they can find closure, justice, or resolution. They need something like that. And just wishing it away is not going to work. If that were the case, Ellie would have done that with Dina. It would have been, oh, I have all this reason to stay here. It's like, okay, yeah, you're good. But she couldn't. Anyway, I just think his argument is just out in left field, and it didn't, comparing to the first game doesn't make sense either, so.
And the thing is, Ellie thinks that killing Abby will give her closure for Joel's death. And that's why she's trying so hard to make that happen. She literally has tunnel vision and she's set on Abby, mowing down hundreds of people to get to that objective. Because she thinks that is what's gonna do. That's why she doesn't feel so bad when she's killing all the... Well, she does feel bad, but it's like there are means to an end. You know what I mean? And this is just like Abby thinking...
No, they're actual targets as well. She kills everyone related to the death of Joel. She says that with Dina. That's the point.
They're also going to kill her if she... So you can't just walk through these areas in plain view of these enemies. If you're going to go non-violently, you have to sneak around them. If they spot you, they will try to kill you. It's kind of worth noting that, right?
It's a murder simulator. The whole game is set up to kill people.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, you don't. It's silly.
Abby's face here honestly represents my feeling like just utter confusion.
What's going on?
in that killing Joel would give her closure for her dad's death. But
and it does. Killing Joel is good. Killing Abby, bad. That's the feeling I got watching these scenes and watching the gameplay. It's such a load off her back. She can finally get back to talking to her friends and being friendly and helping out around whatever the WLF campament is all about.
Careful there, Smut Boy. Jack Saint's going to quote you, and he's going to be like, "Oh, Smut Boy is such an idiot because the point just sailed over his head. I am so much smarter than him. I have such an enlightened mind because I have grasped the point of The Last of Us Part 2.
Jack Saint is a super genius. There's no way I could possibly stand up to his witticisms and intellect. It's just, every day I'm just an ant in awe of a giant. Kind of like that we pause on very good facial expressions. So
he's got a very expressive face. He kind of reminds me of Seamus Gorman a little bit.
Know from Abby's story that she's still haunted by her father's death after she kills Joel. It didn't solve any of her.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Her last dream is her dad smiling at her, and she goes and I can't remember what happens after exactly, but it's like she's no longer conflicted.
Nightmares about her dad dying. She has nightmares about some random kid she met for a day.
Yeah,
she gets to avenge her dad, and then she gets to have like closure and peace after the fact. We don't get to see that with Ellie.
The fact that she gets nightmares again based on a completely unrelented issue with these two children she ran into does not cement the idea that she's still grieving for her dad.
There isn't anything that really indicates that she feels genuinely sorry for killing Joel.
Not only that, her friends feel.
Actually, you know what? Let me do my on-the-fly like brainstorming for how I could fix this. You know how I did such a good job with like providing an idea for how Joel and Tommy could give out their names in a way that makes sense. I'm gonna try this. Okay, so if I want to redeem Abby, if I want to convey that Abby feels guilty for killing Joel, maybe the fact that the person that she saw begging for Joel's life has just rampaged across Seattle and killed so many of her friends, right? Maybe she could come to the realization that, you know, in killing Joel, she became just like Joel. You know, she robbed someone of their father. Maybe she could have this realization that, oh, he had loved ones too, you know? But she doesn't get that realization. Her response is, "We let you live. I mean, I killed your loved one right in front of you, but we let you live. Why didn't you just forgive us and let us go?" You know? But no, my proposed fix is actually have Abby feeling guilty for murdering Joel in front of Ellie. Like, have Ellie's screams playing in her nightmares, okay?
And then at the ending, Abby keeps apologizing to Ellie, and Ellie just can't kill her. It's like
Yeah, like,
something like that. I don't know. There's lots of things you could do, but yeah, you gotta play the story in such a way that it has a point to the other story, because the two stories, there's nothing connecting them aside from one event at the beginning, the the movie theater, and they just happened to, and Ellie just happened to find her at the docks where she should have been killed, or was about to die.
and hell, like, if she's lost all of her friends anyways, like, maybe even have her, like, kind of contemplating suicide. Like, have her almost sort of like get the upper hand on Ellie, right? But well, I'm not even sure about having them fight. It's just maybe more like, Ellie gets to Abby, and maybe Abby just, like, she offers Ellie a gun and is like, okay, I get it, or something. And, like, it's a sort of one of those things where you're offering your neck to your opponent. And it's not like a peace offering per se. It's more like just you're accepting your fate, sort of. You accept what you've done, and that could maybe make Ellie, because if you're going after someone, right, and they show genuine remorse, like, you're going after someone that killed a family member of yours, right? And then that person is showing genuine remorse and is even pleading for you to take their life. That might actually, for me, I could see myself having a second thought. Like, there's actually this person's not a monster. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like a mercy killing. It's kind of like I need to get this out of here. I can't do this anymore. I deserve.
I'm not even suggesting having Ellie kill Abby. I was just like thinking Ellie takes the gun from Abby and is, like, pointing it at her head and is really wanting to pull the trigger at some point, but she sort of hesitates, and maybe she even just gives up right there. Like, that could be a powerful moment where it's like, because Abby is willing to give up her life and just, forfeit right there because she accepts the consequences of her actions, that could kind of make Ellie realize that Abby's not the monster that Ellie thought she was.
I can't remember the exact line. I was in the first Metal Gear Solid game where he's talking to, was it Meryl or Otacon? He's saying, killing gets easier the more you do it. And the amount of body count, or the number of bodies that these people go through, is so high. And in comparison to, let's say, what was it? Not the Thin Red Line. What is that game with PTSD? Spec Ops Line, sorry. Where the more he kills as the chapters go by, he gets more and more violent. He swears. Mm-hmm. So he's going deeper and deeper into psychosis. Whereas if it's the opposite in this game, I guess Ellie just keeps getting worse, and like she feels.
Hold on.
What?
Sorry. Guy in chat, Deadline, says, why would Abby apologize? Her father was killed by Joel, friends killed by Ellie. So Ellie forgives Abby after Abby killed Joel and killed Jesse and ruined her life. Like, I don't understand how my fix makes any less sense than what we got in the game.
There's many ways we could fix these elements because they're so broken. Anything that you would tweak would look better. So a lot of ideas are just remove Abby entirely from the plot and have it focus just on Ellie, or vice versa. So that would piss a lot of people off, though. So
True.
Yeah, no. When you do two narratives, you have to focus on both of them as if they're just equally valid, and when they're not interconnected, you really have to then start branching the narrative to focus on their different goals. Because Abby does not have a goal aside from a location, and Ellie's just hunting her down. So it doesn't even matter what Abby's doing.
Also, my line of thinking for Abby forgiving Ellie or whatever is like, the idea is Abby kills Ellie's father figure, and then that gets her to realize that Abby Abby herself has become like the person that she sought vengeance against. She considers Joel a monster, okay? She completely dehumanized Joel. So that's what made it so easy for her to kill him so soon after he saved her life, okay? She completely dehumanized Joel. So then she could feel regret over that. Maybe because this version of Abby, who is supposed to be sympathetic to to any person playing and not just half the people playing, would actually have a conscience about what she did. Would actually think, maybe in seeking revenge, I've become a monster. The exact same lesson that Ellie gets. Like, both Ellie and Abby could have this revelation. But Abby doesn't get that revelation in this game.
And all her friends, Abby's friends, all think the same way. They might sort of chide her for going too hardcore, and obviously Owen's not too happy about it, but was it Dora or Dana? She gets, he died like a bitch or whatever she says. Everyone wanted Joel dead. So it was mutual. So there's no like, hey, Abby, you ruined our lives. It's like, no, not really. They were gung-ho the whole time. I guess Mel was a bit angry because of whatever she figured out between her and Owen. But other than that, everyone was on board. So Ellie seemed pretty justified in going after everyone.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It seems weird for one person to seem to get this lesson that the cycle of revenge is like, revenge makes you a monster and everything. It's like strange.
All right, let's keep going.
Problems, right? There's a lot of people that say, why wouldn't Ellie just kill Abby? But the thing is, if she did, that would not stop her PTSD flashbacks.
Yes, it would. And even if it didn't, what else would she do? What else could she think of doing?
I don't know if I agree with you, Smud Boy. I would just say though that, like, I don't think that her PTSD flashbacks are going to stop just because she doesn't kill Abby either. How does not killing Abby, do anything to make the PTSD flashbacks go away?
Right. She's going to go back home. She's going to say, hey, nothing's here for me. I should go back and get my revenge again.
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to try attempt number 3. That's what The Last of Us 3 is going to be if they make a third game. It's silly.
That would make sense, because it would be in line with the pattern of the series, making the previous game kind of pointless. Because that's what Part 2 did for the first game for me.
It's all a little silly.
Still would be holding on to something, which at this point was the whole reason she went to find Abby.
Okay, again, even if she was holding on to something, she would get closure on Joel's death, which is kind of the point of the story. Whether she has flashbacks or PTSD is like ancillary to the fact of what she's trying to do. Like, climbing a mountain, I climbed the mountain, I lost some legs, I lost a lung, but I climbed the mountain. It's like, yeah, right, it took a toll on you, but that's what you wanted to do. You did it.
Really even about getting revenge for Joel. It's just about finding peace within herself, freaking going to sleep again.
You don't owe Tommy anything. I don't sleep. I don't eat. I'm not like you, Dina.
And we know this because we saw it with Abby. So what happens? Ellie is drowning Abby.
No, Abby gets to sleep rather well. What are you talking about?
Well, like, talking about how Abby at first doesn't get the...
Yeah, the reason why Abby entered the served is got nothing to do with the fact she killed Joel. Everyone's like in support of, yes, he should have actually gotten worse. The reason why she gets like bothered by like not sleeping very well or behaving strangely is because of an entirely different plot point that just bursts onto the scene once her death has been solved.
Precisely.
So, oh well, okay, her journey to get revenge on Joel is done now. Let's just throw in a different storyline for her to follow, where she betrays the people that helped her fulfill her initial goal in the first place.
Yeah, she decides to go to Owen, even though Isaac says not to. She gets caught. Kids save her. She says, oh, I should probably help those kids. She does. She goes back to Owen. She has another dream, because I should probably help those kids again. She does. Oh, they're sick. One of them's going to die. I'm going to go help them again. She does. It's just constant helping the kids. Yeah, her subconscious is filled with thoughts of her dad. Wow, that's great.
For the first time, sees not an image of Joel beaten to a bloody pulp, but of him alive and healthy playing the guitar, and chooses to stop killing Abby.
Funny how she gets that.
He's still
memory.
dead.
Well, it's funny how she gets that memory from when she is in the middle of violently killing Abby, but when she's, having a peaceful life on the farm, she gets the image of Joel.
So when you're reminded of something, it's generally to do with what's immediately happening. So like when you get reminded of, say something you've that need to do. So like say, oh, you forgot to put, lock the car. You're going to be reminded by a car advertisement on the TV. It's not, you're not going to be reminded of, a nice moment with a guitar when you're beating someone to a bloody pulp.
It's like it almost kind of implies that what Ellie should have done is she should have captured Abby, dragged her ass back to the farm, and then just kept her in a cage. And every time that she needs to remember Joel fondly, she needs to start trying to drown her. And it's just she's just herding sheep around, and she's still seeing Joel's bloody, caved-in skull and everything, and is like, God damn it! And then she goes down to the basement where she's got Abby locked up. All right, time for your. It's 7 a.m. Time for your morning drowning, and then she's just she's drowning Abby and pulling her head out and putting her head back under and pulling her head out again. And the more she does it, the more she's able to remember. Oh, okay, this time I'm remembering the museum birthday celebration. Oh, this time I'm remembering him teaching me how to play guitar. It's
He's a sick fuck.
Yeah, pick a random memory. It's like, when do these memories work? Gee, I don't know. It's the subconscious mind. Tell us, Druckmann. Does killing involve positive feelings? Okay, I guess so.
The correct term is baptism. Ellie the Baptist.
You're going to turn to a fundamentalist Christian.
The power of Joel compels you.
Oh, jeez.
Okay.
Same way Abby chose to save those kids and began seeing her father alive and healthy instead of when he was dead.
So that's an argument against Jathak because he's no longer having nightmares. She's having good dreams. That's the last one she has. It's just, they're dreams. You don't argue from dreams. You never do that in a story. They're interpretive.
But you can't argue. It's not an argument. You're pointing out what one thing happened and then the next thing happened. Abby helped a bunch of children. Then she had a dream where her father was alive. Those are two events that just because you say they happened does not mean they are connected in any way.
Can I?
So I bought a pint of milk and then I punched a lion in the face. Those two stories are connected.
So I have a question, actually, because there is a plot point in my books where my main character is suffering from guilt regarding having to kill a child in self-defense in Afghanistan. And so then in the present, that's a flashback that we see. And in the present, he is working as a police detective, working in special victims and crimes against children, dealing with child sex trafficking. Is there at least a through line there for, okay, he's trying to atone for something he feels guilty for, right?
Well, it depends on what the crime is, whether he's going to turn himself in, who he tells.
No, so he's a soldier who has to kill a child in self-defense in Afghanistan. We're talking a child soldier.
Oh, so it's war. Okay.
Right. Yeah, it's not. He doesn't. Yeah, I should have made that clear. He doesn't murder a kid. He has to kill a kid in self-defense, but it fucks up his psyche, of course, because that tends to be what happens when you have to kill someone in self-defense, especially if it's a kid. But the idea that he is now dedicating his life to helping children because he feels bad about having to kill a kid.
Okay, I just got a chat from Adjay. Rajel, you should check out What Culture Gaming. Oh, What Culture is okay. I don't mind them. Sure, I'll check them out. Let me just write that down. All right, let's keep on going.
Just a visual image to illustrate that both of these characters began to have the inner peace that they wanted the whole time after trying to find it in a healthy way and redeeming themselves instead of doing it in a destructive way and hurt.
No. It's just they both find it in a destructive way. Where are you getting a healthy way? What are you talking about? Abby has killed Joel. That is destructive. Ellie has gone through a rampage. That is very destructive.
That's only subjective.
They had a vision. They had a dream. It's like, what are you talking about? Dreams now denote the plot, guys. You have a dream, you're going to be healthier. It's like, okay. Just have another sleep. Just keep sleeping it off. Sleep off that murder rampage thing you've got going, and you'll be fine. It's like, okay, thanks, Nathan.
I had a good dream, and now my PTSD is cured.
Yeah, except I actually hallucinate in waking hours when I'm on a farm with my family that I love. Not helping the subconscious room.
It's funny because it's like people that defend this game say, "Oh, it's realistic and everything," but it's like this is how this game is handling mental health is not realistic, and I think that they're just doing this, like the whole the dreams are helping them, it just cures the PTSD and everything. Because the reality would be much sadder. There's no mental health help that these people can get in this setting. They would be fucked up for life. There would be no resolution. None whatsoever. And that's far scarier than what the people who are defending this ending and also saying that the game is realistic would be willing to comprehend.
It's the same problem with Spec Ops: The Line, where they do a lot of silly... not necessarily dreams, but hallucinations, where entire levels are hallucinated. Dialogue is hallucinated. He's talking to himself. He's shooting a mirror that he sees of himself. Like all this crazy stuff happening, very similar to a movie like The Sixth Sense or other stuff like that. There's lots of hocus pocus. So you're essentially lying to the audience. And if you want to do dreams like that, you really have to know what you're doing. And you have to be consistent. The only good thing about the dream sequences is with Abby. And she has the same dream. In the first one, she sees the two kids. It's like, oh, I gotta go help those kids. Fine, we sort of understand that. She associated her dad with those two kids. We get that. Then we see her dad smiling back at her in the second dream. We're like, oh, okay, she's better now? Was that enough for her? Kill Joel, help some kids? Is that it? Like, should you talk about that? Should that reveal something? And other games do this. I remember the ridiculous dreams in Mass Effect 3. It's like, oh, Shepard's in pain. How do you know that? He has dreams of what? All the people who've been killed. Oh, okay, I can see that. That's fine. Kind of weird, kind of creepy. Doesn't really mean too much, but great. We get it. We have people telling him he's not getting enough sleep. His adrenaline level's higher than it ever was since he was a soldier back in the day. These little things to know that something's happening inside your head. But the narrative has to come out with it. Abby never says, I'm having these weird dreams. I'm seeing my dad. He wants me to go save some kids. Like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, something like that to tell the audience what's going on in these people's heads. If you don't do that, it's just a big metaphor. And you're sitting there going, what the hell did that mean?
Hurting others. Once they've redeemed themselves by choosing to help somebody instead of hurt somebody. To recap, Joel does a lot of bad things, but then is redeemed by saving Ellie. But he does it in a way that hurts other people.
Who has he redeemed? What story of redemption are you talking about with Joel?
Well, he's not necessarily wrong. So there's a section in the game where Joel and Ellie are in a truck and they get ambushed, and Joel knows that it's an ambush before it happens, and Ellie asks him later, how do you know it was an ambush? And Joel says that he's been on both sides. He used to be one of those types of people that would ambush people and take their food and supplies and everything. And Ellie asks him, did you ever do it to innocent people? And Joel just doesn't answer that. So that implies... And Tommy also says that he has nightmares from the stuff that Joel would do early on during the pandemic to help them survive.
Okay,
so it's like...
The assumption is Joel is not a cool guy. He's obviously done some bad stuff.
He's done bad stuff in the past, but he's redeeming himself in the story that we see.
Okay, so saving Ellie in The Last of Us 1's ending is redemption for him for doing bad stuff, which are completely unrelated to his daughter dying.
I wouldn't say so. I think it's more the context of understanding Joel as you go on this journey. So when he makes this decision, you're right with him.
To me, it sounds like a selfish choice. He wants to save Ellie because it reminds him of his daughter.
I've been Hitch for the last 30 hours, so yes, what he's doing makes sense. Not to mention, he was supposed to get paid back for guns that they were withholding from him, and they were going to march him out of the. So they were going to fleece him on the deal they had, and they were going to march him out of their compound at gunpoint without any supplies.
Okay, the problem I see, you don't have redemption for yourself. You have redemption for others. You can feel bad and say, I don't want this to happen again to me, but you're feeling guilt then. That's not redemption. Redemption is, I want to help others. I've done something I've hurt others. And and you could say that, yeah, if Joel hurt others and says, there's people over there, I got to help them, I feel like doing X is going to redeem myself is good. Fine. But if it's just based off Sarah, then no, that doesn't make too much sense.
Yeah, not a whole lot of sense to me, because the thing with Joel is that he is just about as pragmatic as a survivor gets, He will, like, from the outbreak, from the day of the outbreak, they're approaching a family that's on the road, they're walking and they don't have a car and everything. And his brother wants to pull over and pick them up in their car. They've got room in their car. And Joel tells them, it says, no, step on it. Pass them. Don't help them, basically. And that's who Joel is. He is the person that is looking out for himself, his own self-preservation, his brothers, and his daughters. And that's just kind of, that's the thing with the world of The Last of Us, is everyone is going to be focused on their own survival.
Right.
And it's kind of, for me, it's a little weird to see people acting as if, like, judging him by the same standard that we have for modern society. In a zombie apocalypse, I'm not saying that all morals go out the window, but it certainly becomes more understandable to
survival first.
Yes, survival first. Now, at the same time, this does not extend to the Fireflies wanting to rip Ellie's brains out without her consent.
There's
have to make this clear.
Doing something for for your own survival, and just doing it wasn't necessary to their survival. It was only necessary for a cure, or at least what could have led to a cure.
It wasn't even necessary for a cure. All that they have to do is ask for her consent. She would have given them her consent. And also, here's the thing: the Fireflies, like, Marlene should know about Riley and Ellie's survival guilt over Riley. So, like, even though Marlene may know that, okay, this is what Ellie would want, she should at least know, okay, we should at least go about this the ethical way, ask for Ellie's consent, let her know that this is what's going to happen. If she's confident that Ellie's going to give them her consent anyways, why not just wait and just be extra sure? Like, what's the harm in it? It's not necessary to completely negate her consent, her choice, in order to get the cure. It's a completely unnecessary, pointless decision that the Fireflies make that puts them squarely in the wrong.
You would think that the Fireflies, even with the doctor, would be extremist. So when they ask him the question of, would you do this to your own daughter? And he doesn't answer. It's like, listen, you're going to kill someone else who happens to be a daughter to someone. Why wouldn't you do it to your own?
It's not in self-preservation either. Like, the Firefly is not getting Ellie's consent. That's not something that, again, is required for them to survive. A lot of the stuff that Joel does is required for him to survive. It's a huge difference. I don't see why people are trying to draw this false equivalency between the Fireflies and Joel. Like, killing is going to be like for survival. It's going to make more sense in the setting. However, I don't think that would justify like rape. Like, what is the point of raping someone? As opposed to, like having to cannibalize your dead friend, right? Your friend dies of natural causes, and in our world, eating them would be frowned upon, but in this world, it wouldn't be.
That's a different reason entirely from the topic of redemption and revenge. But the ethics still pops up. Is this morally a reprehensible thing to do, or is it the necessary thing to do? So, anyway, let's get back to Nathan here.
Abby does a lot of bad things, but then is redeemed by saving Yara and Lev. Now Ellie does a lot of bad things, but begins to redeem herself by allowing the spirit of her and Joel's relationship to live on through Lev and Abby.
What are you talking? How do you? What? No. Like, how is that going through her head? How do you know her mental state? This is what I don't like. It's like, oh, well, these two are just like Joel and Ellie. It's like, to you, but not to Ellie. I don't like these baseless arguments. The best understanding we have of the narrative as player and as player character is it's such a long, boring slog that you just want it to be over. So when you see Ellie and Abby fight, you're like, oh my god, are we going through this? You couldn't have just knifed her? Okay, we're doing the slap fight. All right. And then you go, oh, finally it's over. I don't care who lost or who won. It's done. That was the feeling a lot of people got, of just exhaustion. It's like, okay, we're done.
Instead of just snuffing it out right there. People see this final ending as a downer ending. It feels like Ellie gets back to the house, Dina isn't there, and the saddest part is she can't even play the guitar, the one last connection she has with Joel, right? While all this is really sad, it took me a little bit to think about it to kind of like understand why it's not as much of a downer ending as it seems to be. I see it as tragic, but hopeful because of making a decision to go out again to find Abby. And I like that they actually showed us an ideal life of what Ellie's life could be if she just decided, I'm done here. But she decides to go out one last time because she thinks it'll be a quick fix to fix her trauma. Because of that decision to go out, she did lose more. She lost basically everything. But she's finally now at the mental state to move on.
How do you know this? What are you talking about?
He's writing the story for the story.
I hate this. This is like he knows the answer and he's like, well, it's actually a good game because I think X, even though X never happened. Why do fanboys do this?
Okay, she's lost.
It's very on line with TLJ defenses.
She's lost Dina and her adoptive child and basically her home and the ability to play guitar, which was her last connection to Joel. And then we don't even get to see how Ellie is going to recover from this.
What is uplifting about any of this?
For all we know, Ellie is wandering into the woods to commit suicide by clicker.
We have no idea. We don't know what's going on. What's her mental state? How does she feel? She can't play the guitar. She walks away. That's it. That's the ending.
There's no fucking closure.
How is this, again, how is this a up or a hopeful ending? Where's the hope? She's lost everything.
And she's lost everything and doesn't even achieve the objective that the entire game was about.
The last conversation we see is the full flashback that Ellie had just before letting Abby go, where she's finally willing to try to forgive Joel, right? Before this, she was mad at Joel, she was mad at Abby, and she was mad at herself. While she was angry at Abby for torturing Joel physically, she was also low-key angry at herself for torturing Joel emotionally, yelling at him, ignoring him, trying to basically hurt him back because he hurt her, and really mend their relationship before he died. She's angry at Abby for taking that chance away from her, but ultimately she's also angry at herself for not forgiving him sooner. But at the end, she finally sees that it was enough for Joel to see that she was willing to try to forgive him.
No, what are you talking about?
No, that's not how that fucking works. That is not how that works. That's not okay. Being given the offer of closure and forgiveness is not the same thing as finally reaching that point of forgiveness. That's not the fucking... Oh my god, it's not the same thing. I don't know how the fuck you reached that conclusion.
Do you see how painful this is to go through? Because these are the fanboys I hate the most. I don't hate Nathan. I just hate the mental gymnastics they go through because they know the narrative. They know what happens. And now they're twisting it because they think it's X. And X is nowhere to be found.
Okay, so, like, this is... like, what you said there, it's funny. It's like, it makes me think, I don't hate you. I just hate the way that you think. That's just how I feel about this video right now. This is like... I don't... Sorry, my brain has like kind of become putty after that. That was enough.
Is tired from all this.
It was enough for Joel to just be told that she was willing to forgive him. It's not enough that they couldn't have like that. That's enough for him. They don't have to spend any weeks or months or even years mending their relationship. No, that was just enough for Joel. Fuck you. Oh, no. Not good enough.
It's enough to guess the mental state of Ellie at the end. It's enough to guess the mental state of a corpse and what he possibly was thinking in a flashback. It's like, oh, Jesus. Where do we go from there?
I save a person's life because I have an unconditional love for them and I don't want to lose them, right? And then that person finds out years later that I lied about like the circumstances for me saving their life, right? And then they isolate themselves from me for a year or two, and that puts me through a ton of emotional pain because I loved this person and I went and I risked my skin to save them, okay? And now I don't like that loving connection that I had with them is gone, and I'm back to moping around about the daughter that I lost 24 years ago. Like, no, that's like being told I want to try to forgive you is not going to make up for 2 years of torture from someone whose life I saved. No. I'm drawing the line here. That does not make any sense to me.
Do we even know how much time passes between this moment as a flashback and Joel dying? Was it like a day?
It was a day. So here's what happens.
It's actually a day.
Yeah, voice. Let me. So I'll break it down for you. So this scene here that we're seeing on screen, that happens the same night as the lesbian kiss and the bigot sandwich guy calling them dykes. Okay. And Joel shoves the guy, and Ellie tells off Joel. This is like hours or so after Ellie lectured Joel and dressed him down in front of everyone after he had the gall as a straight white man to stand up for someone that he loved, okay? And like to a bigot, all right? So I so then the night after, like the morning after this happens, that's when the game starts. That's when the prologue starts. Ellie wakes up and she, like, the kiss between her and Dina is brought up, and the fact that Seth called her a dyke, and then he makes a sandwich for her and she calls it a bigot sandwich. Like, this is the night before the prologue begins, and that's the same day that Joel gets killed. So this is the night before he gets killed.
But do we have proof that that is the series of events? It's not like a week or a month later.
Yes, because this is the night after. Like, so when Ellie wakes up, it like she had this kiss in the at this dance with Dina the night before. We know this is the one. We know this is the night before. I guarantee you. I will put money on it. Voice. Do you want to put money on whether or not this is the exact night before? Because I will take that bet.
Because I mean, there's reason to assume, but I don't think the game explicitly states that the next day following on from this conversation, Joel is killed. That is the day Joel is killed.
Well, think about it this way.
I don't think there's a moment in the, it makes sense from what you're saying that Dina and Ellie kissed that night, and so it would make sense that if they're actually going to try and do something, they would do something the same day.
This is
like sleep with each other.
This is kind of similar to how I say how Sherlock Holmes, he has unrevealed information where he knows stuff that the audience doesn't. Like he knows that taxi cabs run a certain time of day because in Victorian England they do, but that wasn't told to the audience. This is like kind of need to know information about the motivations of Ellie and what she thinks of Joel before he dies. And if we were told this, if we knew of this information, we'd be like, oh, so this is what's going through her head, as well as the violent visage of his bloodied corpse. It's like, oh, we'd have a totally different outlook of her mind as she would be killing everyone through this. So that when she does eventually make that choice at the end, it's like, maybe. Like it's still a hard sell, but we don't have all the information. So they save it to the end. And this is somehow supposed to explain everything, and it doesn't.
Because it doesn't feel like it's in line with everything else that we've seen up to this point.
Yeah, they could have picked any other flashback where Joel and Ellie are having a great time. Like, I don't know, pick the museum. And Ellie, yeah, imagine the whole museum part. That would have been really tone deaf. Holy crap. The whole museum happens at the end where she's having a great time, and she remembers Joel as this great dad who took her to the museum, and she had a great time with him. You'd be like,
that would have been shit.
That would have been cheesy as hell. But that would have been a much more hopeful ending than this crap.
It's just frustrating to see how, like, Joel had stood up for Ellie. He was defending her, and he was trying to break up a fight that was going to break out between her and Seth. And she just tells him off in front of everyone. Like, I don't need you to stick up for me. Like,
she doesn't want him to mingle. She wants like as little to do with him as possible. So him intervening is mingling with her life and her ability to do her own things. She's like, Joel, just go away.
Yeah, that's why.
I don't know if it's ingratitude for standing up to for her more than it is like, I don't need you to fight my battles. I don't want you to fight my battles because I still don't like you for what you did.
Yeah, and that's just super petty and bitter of her. I don't like Ellie in this game. I think she's a total piece of shit.
Anyway, we got about 6 minutes left, guys. Let's get through this.
That's all he ever needed from her. To know that the relationship with his daughter isn't broken forever.
I don't think I can ever forgive you for
what is it's dead, so...
Yeah, it's quite literally broken forever.
It cannot be anything but broken forever, because if what Southpaw is saying is true, and there is evidence to prove that it is very likely that this was the night before Joel met Abby and got killed, then yeah, they didn't have any time to repair a relationship. It remained broken. Like if I broke a plate and then I said, I've been meaning to glue that back together, I'll do it tomorrow, and then I got hit by a bus. Just because I had plans to fix the plate doesn't mean the plate is fixed.
Yeah, it's a very strange logic. He does this for the next few minutes. It's going to be very painful to listen to, guys. So let's just be careful.
try.
I don't think she fully forgives Abby, to be honest. Just like I don't think Abby really fully forgave Joel or forgave Ellie for killing her friends. They were just...
Forgave Joel.
It's not
She doesn't need to forgive Joel. She killed him.
Pretty sure.
She kind of forgives them. They kind of forgive each other. It's like, what are you talking about now?
Pretty sure that there is no point in the game where Abby decides, you know what?
I wish Joel would forgive me for killing him.
What the fuck?
You know, Abby, I really hate your guts, but I forgive you 53%, so I won't strangle you to death. Like, what?
Don't you just love it when people who defend stories like this make up plot points out of totally thin air to just bolster their narrative?
It's the joy of flashbacks and dream sequences and all this other crazy narrative where it's like, oh, I can interpret this as meaning X. You're like, no, you can't. If you can interpret X, I can interpret Y. This is stupid. We're playing a dumb game. We need concrete examples, not I think this is how it happened, and then I remembered this, and then I saw some kids, and then they were being hung up, and then my dad smiled at me, and then he petted a zebra, and then he got some coins. It's like, yeah.
I killed him and then I forgave him afterwards, and that absolves me for killing him. Wow.
I strangled you. I strangled you half to death, Abby. I forgive you now. It's like, what? I just want to wring your neck for like 2 seconds, all right? Now we're good.
Strong enough to let it go, to end that cycle of violence and move on in a healthy way. Then she lays the guitar down, and this is a symbol for basically finally laying Joel to rest for real now. And can move forward from her trauma in a healthier way.
Wouldn't it have been nicer though if she like maybe turned the guitar over to her other hand and she's going to learn how to play it left-handed so she can continue playing the guitar as Joel taught her to, because that guitar represents a connection to Joel since he taught her how to play the guitar.
You know, it's still possible to play guitar with I can't remember the name of the, is it a reed, or there's a certain name for how you could put a cylinder on your finger to do a chord. So she can still play the guitar, just not as sufficiently.
I feel like
Is it a capo?
A cap. Well, that's an actual thing you press onto the board. I'm talking about an actual cylinder you put on your pinky to do chords.
Oh, I didn't know that was the thing.
But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, she could just simply move it so that her hand that has all the fingers can, like it's picking the chords, and then the left hand that's missing a couple fingers can strum. Like, she doesn't need more than a couple fingers to strum a guitar, right?
Yeah.
So it's like imagine if she were to like actually, try to learn how to play a guitar left-handed, and that's representing how she is trying to like start a new, like she's turned over a new leaf, she's starting a new life or something. Like, she's moving on and she's going to rebuild. She's going to repair herself, basically. She's going to try to make the most out of the situation. Here, it's like, so she's not going to be able to play guitar again. It's like, man, if my dad had taught me how to play an instrument, I would probably, I'd still want to be able to play that instrument to honor him. This makes no sense.
So, yeah, it's hard to interpret what he's saying. It's just like, okay, dude, you're reaching, now you're reaching on your reach, and it just keeps going and going. So I just, I'm gonna read some super chats. We'll try and get through this in the next hours. It's really tough after this, I know. Tyler Preston, what annoys me the most about all this is how SJWs are going to see videos like this and go, these chuds hate this game because it has blank, and completely ignore all the legitimate criticism made. The problem with the narrative to make criticisms about is there's so much crap. There's so much small talk. There's so much empty scenes. And then you get these scenes which are interpretive, and you're like, okay, yes, you can interpret it many ways. That doesn't make it true. And if that's the case, then it's a very bad way to end a story if you're just going to interpret what things mean.
It doesn't help that there is also some people out there that complain about, there's gay characters in this, or there's trans characters in this, where it's like, you're making the rest of the critics of the game look bad, the ones that aren't criticizing the game on those points, or when people complain about the fact that they just simply killed Joel, because there's people in the chat that believe that we were just mad that Joel died, and they just made that assumption because they've seen other people get mad over the fact that they killed Joel, not realizing, no, we're actually reasonable people, and we're willing to craft a way for Joel to get golf clubbed to death in a way that, like, the context makes sense.
Yeah, that's like one of 10 problems that build up to the ending, that it's like, okay, now you really have to learn to deal with all these elements. And it's as if everything's disconnected. It's this strange feeling where everything is smoothly connecting, and all of a sudden, boom, flashback. Boom, jump to Ellie. Boom, day 2. You're like, whoa. And it's disconnected from itself. The fact that the two plot lines don't interact very much is a problem with any narrative, really, that has a protagonist and an antagonist as the focus. But because you're playing as them, it's just, can you imagine as a player, you're going, I'm playing this character I don't like, and now I got to do what they want. and now I got to not get killed. And now it's this very back and forward sort of feeling. So when you get to the ending, you're like, oh, just get this over with. I don't want to do this anymore. I've spent the 20 hours or 25 hours it takes to get through this. So it's a slog. Here's John Lemley. Thank you, sir. A cycle of violence is the new fascism. Yeah, everyone who defends this game, it's more than just the cycle of violence. When was the cycle of violence ever talked about in this game? Like, in the narrative? I don't remember being mentioned once. It's a term that came out from Druckmann and the general feeling of people talking about revenge. Eye for an eye and that sort of thing.
I mean, they don't make it like explicit, but you can draw the parallels between Ellie and Abby somewhat. The problem is that the game doesn't seem to acknowledge the fact that Abby has become just like the person that she hated so much in taking away a person's father from them.
It's not even a cycle of violence. It's just violence. It's just killing. It's just murder. Everywhere you go, there's death and destruction and killing, and you're doing the killing. Here's Joe Crazy. Ah, yes, the 9 iron of forgiveness, as in tradition in some countries. I forgive you with a shiv to the throat thousands of times. Let me forgive everyone across the country. Evan Moore, thanks again, sir. Is there anything about the story that you do like? Yes, there are. There are some elements. I wrote them down. Would you like me to say which parts I like? I really like the part where Owen attacks Abby. This is right before the sex scene. This is the reason why they have sex, actually. Where he chides her and saying, what should I do? Like, because Abby's like, what are you doing? You want to go to Santa Barbara? And he's like, well, what should I do? Go find the killers of my parents and kill them? Or what have you? That's a really good scene because that's attacking what Abby's entire plot was at the beginning. We needed that way at the beginning.
Does the museum scene count? Like, or the opening with Joel singing to Ellie? I liked that stuff.
I quite like a lot of stuff where it's and it's more. I guess it's more for the gameplay when they're not so much the narrative. When Abby's in the village, the burning village, the gameplay for that is really good, and the moment-to-moment stuff with the characters I enjoy. Don't like the overall narrative of why she's there, but I like the character dynamics and the gameplay, and the area is brilliant.
I liked the flashback with Joel and Ellie at the hotel when Joel kills that bloater to save Ellie's life. That was cool.
Yep.
I liked. I actually didn't mind Abby and Lev, like that aspect. Like, if you put that in a vacuum, right? If I don't know who Abby is regarding how she's killed Joel brutally and everything, it's not bad. It's a little rushed and how she's like, you're my people after knowing them for one day, but I don't find the character of Lev to be like terrible or anything.
Like when Geralt jumps onto the scene and knocks him out. That was nice.
That's a joke answer though. I don't think that would really count.
There's one scene, and it's also with Owen though. I just like Owen. Just he's a little more complex of a character. He tells that story about it's the reason why they were investigating Owen because he saved a scar, and he's talking about that old man that he could tell he just didn't want to do this anymore, and that's a really interesting war story about the conflict that Owen was going through and why he was conflicted. I thought that was good.
Owen, like, even though he's a piece of shit who cheats on his pregnant wife or girlfriend or whatever, I will say I respect him for not wanting to kill Ellie or Tommy, even though I think that's like okay, by respect it's like, okay, he doesn't want their deaths on his conscience too, but it is a stupid and impractical thing for him to suggest, and it's really dumb that everyone else just goes along with his suggestion.
Right. Now, in regards to Abby, which is generally unlikable, apparently she does get a little bit of character development, and that's her, I wouldn't say recurring, but it's always mentioned about her fear of heights. So when she's literally on the top of skyscrapers and she's doing this thing and she's going forward with it and she gets dizzy, like she actually goes through with it. If you were scared of heights, you wouldn't go anywhere near that place. And she's top heavy. She's really bulky up top, so her center of balance is way off. Okay.
I also I think to sum up how I feel about Owen and his writing in general is like he's conflicted. Like he has a lot of inner conflict, and that makes him a hell of a lot more interesting or relatable than the rest of the characters. But I still like the whole cheating on his pregnant wife, and the fact that like that sex scene with Abby is so awkward and forced. It's
Yeah.
His social cred goes down for that in my eyes.
It's one thing to hold someone and love them and squeeze them and kiss them and make love to them. It's nothing to turn them around and start ramming into them. It's just like this strange, aggressive sex. You're like, whoa, why did this happen? This is not right. So, little strange. But before that, I think, was it before or after? I think it was after, yeah. They're having a conversation and they're like, what happened to us? And then Owen's like, maybe we stopped looking for the light. And during this entire time, I'm like, oh, interesting. How about that whole thing about that murder you wanted to commit? That 5-year thing you had going for you? Like that, yeah, that's what happened to you. So I kind of liked it. At the same time, I'm like, oh, guys, pay attention. Like, what are you talking about? So that, to me, that tells them, or tells the audience that they're okay with killing Joel. This is in the past. They don't care the fact that they were doing this thing. They all joined the WLF, and they got that thing out of the way with Joel. So this is like, oh, they're tone deaf and they don't care. It's like, okay, this is great. All right.
the thing with Lev for me. So it's like, yeah, a lot of his, like pretty much all of his character or drama comes from the fact that he's trans, you know, and that's what like motivates his story basically. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing to have that aspect of his identity play a role into his character.
It's fine.
And it's not unbelievable for me that the cult that he was in would not be happy about him being trans. The thing for me is just the cult itself, like the existence of the cult itself is kind of odd to me in the setting.
Right.
I'm not sure if I believe people going into this crazy cult that forms after the apocalypse.
Yes, it's very strange that everyone sort of believes in a goddess, or they shun technology, but yet they don't. And everyone has a role, like, and there's elders. It's like, when did this? Like, how did this develop? There's a story in there we didn't get.
All of them consent to being given Glasgow grin. That's why they're called scars.
That I just noticed that. I was like, what is up with that? That's just like watching. It's watching the Joker and going, did everyone on the Joker's henchmen have to do that? Like, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's everyone basically consenting to that. It's like, why would you consent to doing that? It's like, and there's also just in general, like the how and why regarding this cult is kind of just left up to mystery. I don't like the Seraphite WLF conflict. That's the worst part of the Abby section in regards to like gameplay, I guess, or even story too. It's just like the cult itself doesn't make sense. However, if we're talking about like Lev's character and the whole thing with like, this is the thing. This is a story that it could work. You could have a story about a cult and a transgender person coming to terms with their identity, because like, you know, you have gay and transgender people not feeling like they belong in their church, you know, like that. That's a thing. And those stories, you know, they can be told. But what it feels here is like it doesn't seem to fit this exact thing with the cult. You could have it be like maybe they like take the cult out of it and it's just simply their family doesn't accept them. That could work, although it's still like in a zombie apocalypse setting, it's a little bit of a weird thing to focus on. I'm not saying that it's not something that would ever happen, though. It's like, sure, it's a story that could happen in a setting like this, but is it a story that would be worth focusing on, I guess?
Someone's asked me about Movie Bob. I don't know if or Film Robert. I don't know if he has anything to say about The Last of Us 2, so couldn't tell you. Maybe on Twitter, but other than that, I have no clue. Anyway, that's pretty much all I really liked. I did not like the fact that it was cut up. The narrative did not have to be jumping around like crazy. I thought that was a silly thing to do. They could have had a linear story just fine. But that was just like it's hard enough in a book to say, oh, now we're doing a backstory, now we're doing a flashback, now we're doing a dream. It's just too much. And to do that twice over and to jump around is just between two characters is too much. Like if you're talking about George R.R., where he makes big books, like you know what you're getting into. This is like an action adventure platformer third person thing. And cutscenes are gameplay, essentially. There's no transition. It's beautiful. It's
especially weird considering the first game went for a whole year, so it went chronological from spring to summer to autumn to winter to spring.
Yeah,
again.
the seasons are so, like, I don't know what happened between day 1 and day 2, but it just, from winter to spring, you're like, done. You're like, wow. Quick.
But I think there was certain parts where we could have done with character motivations being established before the actual scenes where they make big, plot changing actions. It would really help to understand why they're doing what they're doing first.
Yeah, it's tough to do that though when you have all these factions that, like the Seraphites, they don't make too much sense. Like it's a cult.
True, but it was their fault for writing that in the first place.
Yeah. Plus, then we have the third party or the third group, which is the slaver groups, and you're like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. Plus, that whole reveal of the Firefly still being alive. It's like, oh, that was
two
luck.
games rolled into one.
Yeah, they just slammed it all together at the end. You're like, oh, come on, this is being rushed. You could tell.
Yeah, the Rattlers being introduced at the 11th hour of the game was like, oh my god, another faction, really?
I actually found them more interesting than the generic, we hate technology and have creepy scars on our bodies faction.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, it would have been more interesting to see a conflict between the WLF and the Slavers, because the Rattlers, the Slavers, let's see, they are holding, like, they're capturing people and they're making them into slaves. Now, what their slave labor is, we don't know, but then you have the WLF. What does the L and WLF stand for? Liberation. Would be kind of interesting if their cause was, I don't know, they escaped from the Rattlers and they founded this cause to free other people that were enslaved by them.
Yeah.
That's already a way more interesting conflict than WLF versus silly Glasgow Grin cult.
And why are they fighting? Because a bunch of kids got crossed the border or what have you. It's like, wow, great. It's a minor dispute across the border. That's the reason you're at war. And then Isaac's like, no, we got to wipe them out now. It's like, why? What's going on? So it's a weak reason. Yeah.
Yeah, chat. Do you find a potential rewrite involving WLF versus Rattlers more interesting than WLF versus Seraphite? Just quickly say yes or no.
I think it would be really cool because the what is it, the Rattlers, what did that guy have? He had a silenced automatic gun or something that Ellie got. That was like the best gun in the game.
Silenced SMG.
It was fantastic. Yeah.
That thing was so insanely powerful.
Yeah, and that's like during the entire game where Ellie only gets a bolt action or whatever. It's like, oh wow, she could actually use a better gun now. That's nice. Took all game.
They don't show another PTSD scene, even though she's probably gonna have PTSD. At this point, she's seen a lot. But they don't give us that another flash of PTSD, and instead give us this bittersweet moment between these two characters to show us that she's finally at the 5th stage of grief acceptance. She's starting to have the closure that she wanted the whole game. Ellie is once again,
but she's not gonna get it because Abby's still alive.
A symbol for hope, the same way that she was a symbol for hope in the first game. In the first game, she's a ray of light for both Joel and their relationship, and for the world, and the fact that she's immune to this thing and could provide a cure. In the second game, she gives us hope that all of us can find healthy ways of coping with trauma instead of destructive ones. And even
after you murder thousands of people, that's fantastic.
Yeah, the game just glosses over the fact that she'll probably be fucked up for life. Like, realistically speaking, she's gonna be fucked up for life.
Yeah, if you kill a few people, you're pretty much going through trauma. If you kill up thousands of people, for the thing you never got, yeah, you're gonna be messed up. Joe Crazy. I would have liked to see the military again. I think that would have been, very similar to the Enclave in Fallout. I want to see what the remnants of the U.S. military or the U.S. government would have been. I think that would have been cool. But that's Fallout, so I'm not expecting all these post-apocalyptic stories to be very similar. But I would like to see, outside of independent factions of people surviving, the actual. I'm sure the government, whenever this thing happened, would have had a safe house, and they would have preserved some culture.
Well, I think in the story, the government and the military fractured to create some of these towns.
Right, they were disconnected, yeah. But I would imagine like Washington or any of the major cities that have the governments, like the Pentagon or what have you, would have been, all right, we have organization, we know what to do, because they're military. They would have reacted properly and gone to bunkers or safe houses or what have you.
To ourselves and the ones around us, we can still pull ourselves out of that and go to the light, the same way a moth does, and that's the whole story.
Same way a moth goes to a light. Do you know what happens when a moth goes to a fucking moth killer? Moth cat. There's like lights you have in fucking restaurants and places. Like they go into that, they die. Bug zapper. That's what I'm trying to think of. Do you know what happens when it goes to the bug zapper? It fucking dies.
This is the tale of Icarus, guys. This is what we have. Ellie is striving too hard to augment her legs or whatever. Okay.
I mean, I don't doubt that the moth imagery is there for a reason. Like, he might be onto something here regarding like artist's intent, but regarding what the gamer, what the player is going to extrapolate from the story. I think that they have failed to tell a story that's going to resonate with most people.
We're talking about symbolism at this point. This is what most people reach with when they see objects or signs or a motif. Sometimes they look at a story and say, "Oh, the motif of murder or neglect or guilt," pointing to a symbol for Joel and a symbol within that symbol, and then trying to talk about going to the light. This is reaching on top of reaching.
Sure.
I really hate when people do this. It's just a guitar, guys. Okay?
You're kind of like Freud, you know? It's just a cigar.
Sometimes it symbolizes Joel. That's it. We know it's obvious. We don't need to spell that out. But to spell out the symbol on top of the symbol is just okay. This is like
sometimes a guitar is just a guitar.
Yeah.
Symbol for Ellie and the friggin' thing, and it ends with the guitar. Oh my gosh. It's tragic to me, but it's also hopeful. The same way that the first...
Why is it hopeful? What are you talking about?
It's not very hopeful at all, in fact.
I mean, good for you, Nathan. It's not hopeful to me. I felt like the whole journey that I went on was pointless, and they kind of destroyed what I loved about the first game in the process. That's what I felt. But you know what? You felt it was hopeful. Good for you.
Game was the same way that this, honestly, the whole world that they created is. It's tragic, but there's always glimmers of hope. This game is depressing, but there's always little parts in there that are like little parts of light that are so beautiful.
Yeah, flashbacks of the man who has died.
You're right, the game is shit, but occasionally it's good.
Yes, something like that. Throughout the ramblings of all this giant tome of dialogue, which is mostly crap, you'll get a little story here that, Owen's talking about where he nearly killed a man. That's interesting. Okay, that's good. Yeah, there is some hits, like a broken clock. Yes, you're right. It does get good here and there. Oh, here's John Lemley. Thank you, sir. Shout out to the fanboys for working harder and coming up with a better explanation of the story than Neil did, even if they don't know what they say. Yeah, I know. All this reaching is like, hey, yeah, that would have worked. You're right. That would have been great. Too bad it wasn't there.
No? I saw a comment that said The Last of Us Part 1 ends hopeful on the surface, but with misery underneath. And now the second game is ending with misery on the surface, but hopeful underneath. I think that's...
No, I'm calling bullshit on that. No, I'm calling bullshit.
It's like so far underneath, it's like, it's buried like fucking 10 feet deep.
I'd also call it not there.
Yeah, it's fair to say.
Hey, Smud, are you blocked by Just Right on Twitter?
Yes, I am. He blocked me. I don't know what I did. It was right after Mahler got blocked too, and I was just like, okay, what did Mahler do? Like, I don't know. So I read the tweet, and Just Right
what
said
did
something about how people's opinions change over the years, and I'm like, yeah, they do. Unless you have a critical analysis technique that sees objective criteria, then you can, nitpick the details.
I think it was the reacting to why I liked The Last of Us Part 2.
No, I doubt he even knows about me. I really doubt he knows.
Blocked, apparently. About you to be bothered to hit the block button.
Well, anyone who's contradicting him, I bet in Twitter he would block. So, but I've done multiple videos on him, calling him out. So he's never mentioned those either. So I doubt my little channel will get his attention. So it's Just Right. I don't care.
I'm so small and insignificant that I can remain in contact with these people because they won't know. They'll be like, "Hey, did you know we reacted and tore apart your video on a Smudcast?" And they go, "What's a Smudcast?"
But do you want to remain in contact with them though? That's the question. Or do you want to be in contact with them at all?
I think it'd be interesting. Yeah.
Just Right's just the kind of person that just wants to like share his opinions, but he doesn't really want people to counter them or disagree with them. Like, if you disagree with Just Right, you're gonna get blocked on Twitter, especially if it's over Star Wars or like the idea that you can assess media like objectively, so to speak. I don't like to use the word objectively anymore. By the way, it's just because there's just so much baggage to it. I agree with the standard that we and Mahler have, Smudboy, but I think that
it became like a buzzword.
Yeah, it's become a buzzword. I see people misuse it. I see people like someone tried to tell me that 1917 was objectively bad because Smudboy, have you seen 1917?
I haven't got to it yet. No.
Good film.
Okay, so like character has a bayonet on his fixed on his rifle. Then in another scene, he doesn't, and he claims it's objectively bad because he should have had the bayonet on his rifle.
That sounds to me more like someone trolling it and taking the piss. Because people who usually you can't say it's an objectively bad film just because of one tiny like continuity breach.
Well, he's trying to like say, oh well, this was affecting the plot because if he had the bayonet on his rifle in the scene, he wouldn't have had to just slowly strangle this guy to death, blah, 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 blah. And it's like ignoring the fact that so he fixed the bayonet to his rifle before that plane crash scene, right? And then as he's walking through the house and he's leaving the house, you can see him putting the bayonet back in his sheath because he's about to enter a truck which has a tarp. You probably don't want to... It's a crowded truck, too. You don't want that thing possibly poking a person's eye out.
He shoots the guy anyway. Pilot you're referring to, he shoots him. He doesn't strangle him.
He's complaining that, well, there's a guy he strangles later on.
But he hasn't got a gun, period.
Well, he has a gun. He drops it because he's trying to keep the guy quiet, and then the guy shouts out for help, and he strangles the guy to death. He has the gun when he first comes across the guy, but he doesn't want to use the gun to so the bayonet's not fixed to the gun, so he can't just stab him.
Even then,
shoot him because that gives away his position. Is like, oh, the other soldiers will come by. Like he's trying to go through this area stealthily.
Even then, even if it's like one continuity breach, it's kind of like the disappearing knives in the throne room. That is one small problem in a much bigger film. It is relatively minor. Like, that is not the singular reason you can say for why it is objectively bad. And when you say something is objectively bad, you need to make an argument overlooking the whole film for why it is of poor quality rather than just saying, hey, this one thing here, it means it's a bad film.
Well, I agree with you on that, but the thing is that it's not even a continuity error because there is an establishing shot showing the character putting the bayonet off the rifle and into his sleeve or a sheath.
And that would be a mistake then, like on the viewer's part.
Yes.
They were not privy to the information that happened.
Well, that's the thing.
Does that not mean that he still has the bayonet on him though, and he just hasn't put it back on?
Correct.
Okay.
So, but the thing is, it's like, look, people are going to have disagreements over like the standards that they use to assess media. I think yes, you can try to separate your feelings about something as much as you can. Like for instance, I do think that the criticism of Joel's death not being satisfying or emotionally fulfilling, that's valid. That is a valid thing to have, and it's a valid thing to say that you wish that Joel could have had a more meaningful death like Lee Everett's or Arthur Morgan's. Totally fine. However, if they're going to go for a shock value death, then it's like, I think that you should focus on how it's executed. The objective part is talking about whether it's consistent with Joel's character for him to act the way that he acts that gets him in the situation.
The objective part is just what's in the actual media you're looking at, and using that as evidence to explain why something is this, that, or the other without going to feelings or any kind of bias on your part. Where you say, oh, well, this happens, oh, and because of the way I feel, yeah, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, 1917 is not overrated. You're wrong, Toasty Danny.
It's a very good film.
It's not just the cinematography.
Tonight, bitches die, then.
It's a rather simple film, but it's a very good one.
It's like it's not plot heavy, it's not even character heavy really, but there's a character that you can connect to. The story has a good hook, and it's got a satisfying payoff. The music's great, the acting is great. The effects are great. The sets look great. It's not just cinematography that's firing on all cylinders there. Okay.
All right.
I didn't even realize that like half the shots in that film are actually CG. So, and they because they do like the one take in quotation, but what it actually is they do a shot of them climbing into the foxhole, and then they will do a shot of them climbing up the other side of the foxhole. But there's a gap in between of them in the foxhole and then out of the foxhole, and they stitch it together with CGI.
It seems hilarious to defeat us to surrender a useful term just because some people use it incorrectly. That's not just because. There's other reasons, such as you say objectively and suddenly the conversation derails from talking about the quality of something to whether or not you can assess.
You can say that word.
Yes. Like that happens constantly. If you just avoid saying the word and you just talk about quality, you just talk about how the writing in The Last Jedi is bad, and you talk about all the plot holes and stuff, and you just leave out the objectively part, you're not opening yourself up to going on this very long tangent.
Well, we're still talking about critical analysis, and the whole definition of critical analysis is to be objective. So if people aren't doing that, and they focus on reader response theory or some other interpretation of feelings, or what's that ridiculous Marxist literary technique that Jack Saint loves, it's just like, dude, come on. You're wasting everyone's time. This is not the point of literary criticism or aesthetics. Not everything is political. Not everything is progressive. This is stupid. So
I would say that the big problem, I think maybe that more problem with that we need to kind of establish more what objectivity is, because I've seen far too many times, we've all seen it, on YouTube in general, where people will make the mistake of when they talk about, so you'll get someone who's really good, because it's always very easy to make arguments why something is bad, because it's right there, you can point to it, it sticks out like a sore thumb. This is bad because of X, and then you explain why it's bad, and you break down the elements. That's pips, that's easy. But when it comes to saying why something is good, it's very difficult to make the argument of why it is good, because it's harder to break down. Everything's more seamless. It's like it's been sandpapered down.
Well,
so, or at least from that person's perspective. So
the definition,
when they can't latch onto anything to say why it is good, then they start to go, oh well, because of feelings.
Right.
You need to establish that a media isn't. I've kind of said this for a long time, since the very first time I was on this podcast, where the idea that art is nothing more than what you feel is something which has kind of destroyed any kind of idea of quality within art, and that is something I've kind of been on the warpath against, because I fucking hate it. And it's the idea of objectivity is the battle against it, saying no, there is some kind of quality beyond what we personally derive out of a media.
The problem is that the word is very loaded, and it becomes obfuscated when people start using their sociological studies, or they look at epistemology or metaphysics, and they combine that with an argument of aesthetics, which should be completely independent of that and language and everything else. It should be its own thing. And they just keep saying, well, this is impossible. This is metaphysically impossible. It's like, listen, I don't want to have this argument with you. We know the definition. This is what we're saying. That's all there is to it. It's really simple. And if we can talk about the theory of forms from Aristotle to explain it, we can do these things. And it doesn't matter how clear we get. They just aren't going to listen. They're going to go back to society as a social construct, and all these language terms are up in your ass, and you've invented this word, and I can define it any way I want.
It's one of those words that you need to be careful saying depending on who you're talking with. Like, it's like when you go for an interview, and there are certain phrases you should avoid saying because it's so cliche. So you should get around trying to say them to that particular person. If you're going to have an argument with someone who believes in that kind of stuff, then it's probably best to steer clear of objectivity or try and explain it in a way without saying the word directly.
Yeah,
just like you wouldn't say to an interviewer, I've always dreamed about going into a business marketing job ever since I was a kid. Don't say that, because that is the most cliche thing. They probably won't listen to you.
I'm just saying, so quality is still a matter of opinion as well as like emotions. I'm not saying that there are inaccurate opinions that you can form about quality. Like, this guy is saying that Last of Us 2 is a flawed masterpiece. His references are not accurate. So yeah, his argument is poorly founded. Okay, and I'd say, like, they don't hold water. It is his opinion. Like, his standard for what makes a quality story is clearly different from ours.
So an opinion also is not always subjective. There is such thing as an objective opinion, because some people think that there isn't.
Yeah, sure, but especially when it comes to like storytelling, it's kind of difficult to determine that. I'm just saying, as much as I agree with the whole the standard of consistency and stories making sense and all that stuff, it's just like, for me, I just don't like using the word objective. That's all.
The best thing you could do, aside from studying philosophy and the aesthetics of philosophy for multiple philosophers, pick up Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig. Just read the last chapter, and you'll have much more knowledge and understanding of criticism of art and quality, really, than most people out there. So everyone do that. It will take you maybe 20 minutes. You'll be fine. Anyway, let's read some super chats and keep on going. Joe Crazy, but what did the bigot sandwich symbolize? Great meme. That's pretty much for me. I love that meme. It's fantastic. John Lemley, objectivity is a social construct. Thank you, John. Yeah, that's what you do when you argue these people on Twitter. It's like, yeah, well, that's just your opinion, you know? It's just your interpretation of stuff. It's great. Okay, 16 minutes, 41 seconds. We're good, guys. We can keep going.
Okay, a perfect end for this game. Like, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of people hate this ending and whatnot. This is literally probably one of my favorite endings I think I've ever seen. And people think that, like,
God, go fuck yourself.
It's so interpretive. I can interpret the best ending ever. It's like, okay.
I'm like one of his favorite endings ever. I feel bad for saying that just because this is all subjective stuff. Like, this is like one of his. He says one of his favorite endings ever, right? Not one of the best endings ever.
For this game. Like, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of people hate this ending and whatnot. This is literally probably one of my favorite endings.
Okay, yeah, favorite. So it's a subjective thing, and that's fine. It's fine, but it's like, wow, for this to be one of his favorite endings ever, that, like, if I watch this dude's videos, how am I going to be able to tell how good an ending is if this is one of his favorite endings ever? And I'm also looking at his face right now, and it's priceless. I need to screen cap this. I'm sorry. This is like the ultimate derp face that I'm seeing. I don't know how yeah, it's the same on stream.
Yeah, who's posting all those photos of him in the chat? I'm like, what's going on?
That's me.
All right, well, whatever makes you happy, Southpaw. It's fine by me.
Yeah.
thing I've ever seen. And people think that like the Game of Thrones ending is bad, right? Which it is. And they're comparing it to this ending. But bro, that ending, they literally were halfway out the door when they were writing that ending. It was like they were trying to just write it so they would be done with it forever.
This is the argument. The producers and directors of season 8 of Game of Thrones were out the door. Therefore, that's why they wrote it that way. It's like, what?
Shouldn't they have enough respect for their fucking, work already that shouldn't matter?
Because, they weren't out the door.
Yeah, like there are reasons for things, but there's also there's no such thing as an excuse. Because, an excuse is like you trying to say that, that means that it's okay. But, bad media is still bad media. It doesn't automatically fix because there's a reason why it is bad.
It's like, hey, we know why it went bad. It's like, and do you know why The Last of Us 2 is bad? Apparently not. But, season 8, they were out the door halfway. So that makes a big difference.
Rushing it as fast as possible to be done. But when I think about this ending and like how many things connect and like feels like they put a little more effort into it than that.
Yeah, I would agree. They put a little bit more effort, just not much effort to make it consistent, to make it make sense.
I feel like, yeah, they put in a little bit more effort, but you know what? How much a little bit more effort is than no effort at all. It's a little bit more effort than no effort at all, guys.
When your baseline is Game of Thrones season 8, you say they put in more effort. It's like, yeah, that's not telling me much about what you're talking about. Yeah. Okay.
I hate that last season. But how do we accept a loss in our lives when we didn't get to fully make everything right with them before they died?
Anecdotal references, yay!
In real life, we don't always end on perfect terms with people like in the movies where they die in their arms and they say their final words and it's beautiful, you know? How do we move past the fact that this world takes people from us before we think it should? I think this game answers that question in a really interesting way. One criticism I do understand.
It doesn't really answer that question. It more like it certainly portrays it happening.
Yeah.
But it's just like, and like, yeah, that's the thing is, so it's trying to be more reflective of real life, and I respect that decision. However, it's like maybe it's kind of strange for a lot of people that like to consume storytelling, and this was something that someone in chat said yesterday, and this was them trying to argue that the way that they killed off Joel was objectively bad, which just because of him getting golf clubbed to death, and it wasn't like a Lee Everett type send-off, which is another reason why using the word objectively is dangerous. Like, I understand wanting more meaning out of character deaths in art, and I can, like, it's totally understandable why it's, like, emotionally unfulfilling, and that's the point of this game, but it's like saying, oh, it being emotionally unfulfilling is the point. It's like, okay, imagine that I'm taking video of myself, right? And I bite into a sandwich, a bigot sandwich, if you will, and I just like chew on it with my mouth open, right? And then during the editing process, I have the camera zooming into my mouth, chewing on food, right? And then I go, so did you feel disgusted by that? Did you feel uncomfortable? Did that make you feel awkward? Well, that's what I intended for you to feel. Like, okay, that doesn't make it a good story, though.
It's a surface level thing. That was the point of it. If that's all it's supposed to be, then great. We can say an explosion is good because that's all it's supposed to be. If there should be more meaning, then great. But there isn't supposed to be there. It would have been great if we had build up of the characters involved, because all it was shock. It was shock and awe. The character was freaking out. The other characters wanted that character dead, and that was it. We jumped to cut to black, and then boom, we're back with Ellie again. So the scene itself is not bad. It's just surface level.
Yeah, like art wanting to depict people dying in brutal, mundane ways that like rob us of closure. Like, fuck, man, I mean, my dad died of a fucking infection while going for cancer treatment, you know? Not quite the glorious send-off that I would have loved for him to have, okay? or him being like 93 years old and on his deathbed, surrounded by people that he loved and being conscious and everything. Like, yeah, it wasn't a beautiful death that he had, and I have to live with that. Kind of sucks that I can't even fucking escape to The Last of Us and get something different out of that. I know that maybe some people are going to be in favor of emulating life like that, and maybe that's going to help them get over a similar loss of a parent under like similar circumstances. But it's not what I'm looking for, at least, and that's a subjective thing. Whether you prefer games do or art stories do shock value deaths or unsatisfying deaths, or you prefer a little bit more catharsis out of it, like I don't think that there's a rule saying you have to do one or the other.
Here's John Lemley again. Thank you, sir. No Country for Old Men did a far better job making the main character's death sudden and feel like real life. That's a mixed movie for me. I never really enjoyed it. It was drawn out. A lot of people love it. So, yeah. The death scenes were obviously done a little bit better when you focus on a serial killer. So, Okay, we got 3 minutes. Let's go.
Is the pacing of this game. Cosmonaut had an interesting idea where you'd play as Abby and be friends with these people, and then you'd play as Ellie and kill these people. And I kind of like that idea. I think that's kind of cool, but I think giving us a bird's eye view of the story where we know everybody doesn't really put us in the shoes of these characters the way that I liked how they did. I like that we don't know both sides yet because they don't know both sides yet.
Yeah, the problem is, though, when you do the flashbacks and you see those characters and you know they're dead, you're like, oh, that's that dude who just got killed. I don't care about them.
Yeah, if you give me a chance to develop with those new characters first, then I can feel something about them.
It's a strange feeling. It's like, oh, I know that guy. He's a corpse. It's like, I don't care about him anymore. It's
like, so for me, it's kind of like, so there's unspoken rules to storytelling, right? Like it's not like legally binding per se, but regardless, so a story should generally take place during the most interesting part of a person's life. It's why Star Wars takes place when Luke gets R2-D2 and C-3PO, and the story just simply opens to show us the context for R2 and 3PO going there in the first place. And then, but not like taking place when, I don't know, Luke is 10 and he's just doing his regular moisture farming duties. Like, imagine a movie where main character wakes up and then he eats breakfast and then he goes and takes a shit and then he goes to work and then he takes lunch at work. He takes a lunch break. He goes and takes a shit afterwards. And then he comes home from work and then he eats dinner and then he goes and takes a shit, maybe watches a movie and then goes to bed. Movie's over. It's just a mundane day in the life, right? Nothing happens. Nothing of interest happens. There's a reason why we don't see stories like that, because stories are supposed to be interesting. They're supposed to be a lot more interesting than that. And it's like people seem to think that it would be good to make art that breaks through those conventions just for the sake of it.
Like, the idea it breaks the convention, it means it's some kind of... It gains some kind of award just for that.
Yeah, like I filmed paint drying on a wall, guys. It's not what people would normally do. It's not a conventional film.
It's risky.
Yeah, it's different, yes, but that doesn't mean it's like it's going to be interesting to most people that watch it.
Well, there are various authors that are famous for doing slice of life stories. I think Haruki Murakami is one of the most well known living these days. Mm-hmm. But a lot of his more recent books, like Killing Commendatore, I think is the latest one, they just drag on. And they go into the fantasy, they go into this and that. And it's very similar to how you have Neil Gaiman Bingo. It's like, oh, there's another story where a cat walks past the main character and something ominous is going to happen, or someone plays someone in jazz or classical music. Like, all these patterns start emerging from the style, because this is what he's doing. He's telling the same story over again, but with a man in the mountains on a chateau or in the city in Tokyo. So these stories can be told well, and there are conventions for doing slice of life, but you have to be really careful in how you do them, or else they end up just being mundane day 1, day 2, day 3. So it's not for everyone, and that's the problem with Abby's plot, because there isn't really one. It's just a day in the life of Abby after she did her life's goal of killing Joel. And that is one of the huge problems I have with Abby, because there's no focus.
Yeah, like another way to sort of imagine this is, imagine if the first Last of Us actually took, like, all of it took place before the day that Joel meets Ellie, right? So it's just a day in the life of Joel the smuggler in the Boston quarantine zone, and there's really not much going on. There's nothing spectacular going on. You're just following day-to-day life for these post-apocalypse survivors, and there can be, like, encounters with infected and whatnot, I guess, but it's not going to be the most interesting part of the story. Like the unwritten rule of writing a story is the story should be about the most interesting part of this person's life, right?
There should be some conflict, at least. Give me something to sink my teeth into. Give me a hook. You can't
not like necessarily the most interesting, I mean, but yeah, like, certainly more than just a slice of
the
life.
most idealized day that would be interesting to listen to or read. That's what you want. You want to do the idealized character, the idealized conflict, the idealized whatever. Throw it out there. What would happen that makes this worthwhile? And there's many ways to tell that story. But we're not going to get into the concepts of storytelling for a blank page and a genre. We can talk about that later. But there's so many ways to take slice of life and turn it into something worthwhile.
Yeah.
Sadly, Abby is not one of those examples, at least to me. It feels like she's a ping pong ball, just bouncing around.
Abby doesn't know Joel's backstory, and that's why she doesn't think twice about killing him. Ellie and us don't know Abby's backstory, and that's why we don't think twice about killing her and all her friends. I appreciate that they didn't give us the full story in a way that's just easier to understand, because that's what we're used to. And
oh yeah, I would hate to have a story that makes sense. That would be horrible.
Well, he's even saying is that, oh well, an easy story to interpret.
This is
like,
bad
okay, so
advice.
You're giving them a pat on the back for making a story that's harder to understand. From your eyes anyway, from your perspective, you're saying, oh, this is more difficult to understand. Pat on the back.
Yes, this is what you don't do, guys. You never, ever want to make the argument for making a narrative confusing unless there's a really good reason and technique on how they do it. And sadly, again, with Abby's story, there's too many cuts, there's too many jumps, there's too many time skips, there's too many flashbacks, there's too many dreams. It's a mess. You do not want to have a mess. When you walk into a room, you don't want to see everything rearranged all over the place. It's not how cleanliness works. That's not how decorum works. You don't just go to a movie theater and the chairs are bolted to the ceiling. Like, oh, this is a great movie theater. I'm like, fantastic. I wasn't expecting that. It's like, no. It has to be practical first, and then you can experiment.
movies and TV and stuff. If anything, I just think Abby's sides should be a little shorter, or maybe both Ellie and Abby's sides are just a little shorter, so that it doesn't feel like the game didn't need to be 30 hours. It felt a little long, but I paid $60 for the game. I didn't want it to end in 10 hours. I personally think this narrative structure is way more ambitious, but it doesn't work for some people. But I appreciate them even just trying to go this crazy with it, because we all love the
So it sucks, but I appreciate the attempt. Okay, that's fine.
first game, but it's pretty straightforward. Guy takes a girl from point A to point B, and they bond along the way. Has to make a tough decision at the end. At this point, we've seen it so many times that if they just did it again, it's like, it'd be fun, but wouldn't be that interesting. For me,
it's the format is uninteresting because it's so simple. Okay, I mean, when I read stories, I'd like a nice linear progression, not jumping around 14 times time and perspective. It's kind of hard to follow. That's one of the problems with George R.R. There's too many characters. There's dozens. There's hundreds. You have to follow them all. You need a glossary. Like Tolkien. Well, Tolkien wrote a lot more too, so he had different languages, he had different settings, different characters. That's kind of necessary. So you have to follow along. It's hard.
Movies are more interesting when you understand the villain's point of view. I think we can all appreciate that, but I've never seen a game commit so hard to showing us that there's no true hero. There's no true villain. Everything operates in a gray zone.
Wow, welcome to the genre of zombie horror survival. That's every single story in the genre ever.
It acts as though it's so groundbreaking when it's like, yeah, every single zombie story does this. Every single one.
What's the quote? The real monsters are the people, or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
That thing has been done in movies and TVs and books, but it's a passive thing, you know? Like, we're just watching these.
Don't drag Civil War into this. Captain America Civil War does not deserve to be compared to this fucking piece of shit.
I hate that reference that movies and books are passive. I'm like, if your imagination's not flying when you're watching a movie or reading a book, I don't know what you're doing, but you're watching a bad movie.
It's correct in the sense that it's a passive use of your time as opposed to a video game, which is an active use of your time, as in there is inputs that you put, you do to progress the media you are consuming, as opposed to a film that you sit back and then play out regardless of what your thoughts are.
The input device for a book is different than the input device for a controller in a video game. I admit that, yes. But your imagination and your mind is working exactly the same, whether you're reading the narrative on a page or watching it on a screen.
It's talking about your input to what you're actually consuming. For a film is passive because you're not actually putting any input physically besides hitting the play button.
Yeah, it's the same with
your mind can be firing on all cylinders as it can for a video game, but it's an active. A video game's like an active waste of your time, where a film is a passive waste of your time.
I see it more with brain activity. Like when I'm reading a book, I can get a lot more interactivity out of a book just because of the complexity of the narrative. Whereas a game and a movie, everything has to be rendered, everything has to be shown, or if there's dialogue or voice acting, like it's just an extra layer of media. But I process words on a page much more mentally than I do with visuals. Because visuals are sensationalistic. They're supposed to make you go, ooh, look at that big bright color explosion. And that's fine. That's great. That's why we have the medium. But when I read a book and I read a science fiction or T.S. Eliot or whomever, a poem, it stimulates me probably even more just because it's so refined. The experience is so focused. And you could say the same of, let's say, combat in video games. Like, the Dark Souls experience is very focused for that hardcore one-hit kill sort of experience where either you can do it or the enemy can do it against you. Whereas Civilization game is this long trek through the ages. We have this God's eye view of everything. So it depends on the genre. It depends on what you're talking about. And I would just say that the stimulation of the brain or the ideas therein could be equal depending on the content material. So I understand the argument, though. That's totally cool. John Lemley, thank you, sir. Have we discovered YouTube's Kyrie Irving? Is he like Kyrie Irving? I don't know. He kind of looks like him, I guess. I'm not much of a basketball guy, but yes. He's very enthusiastic. Let's give him that. Joe Crazy. Remember, guys, some are comparing this to Schindler's List. Yeah, that's true. So at least he isn't that crazy. Yeah, a lot of the, what do you call the bloggers, the video game aficionados of GameSpot and IGN and all those people, they're comparing it to like, oh, this is this generation's Schindler's List. Like, no. It's just a zombie horror story, guys. That's all it is. Maybe it's the non-video game journalists. They might say that. At least that's the guy who actually quoted that Schindler's List thing. Where he played it, he's like, I hated it, but it was such an experience. Just like Schindler's List.
Characters were disconnected. But with this interactive media of video games, I've never in my life played a final boss battle where I didn't want either of the characters to die. Every single game I've ever played in my life, I get to the final boss, I'm like, bro, you're done, I'm killing you, you're the boss, you're the final boss, you're done. This game, I was like, I honestly just want both of y'all to like relax a little bit, okay? Like, what game has ever made me do that? Never.
It's great that it made you feel that way. I felt differently. It doesn't resonate with me. It's great that it resonates with you. I wish that the game had been constructed in a different way to make me feel the same way that you do, because there was a way for them to be able to do it. However, they didn't do it.
Another thing is that it's a very kind of strange thing to say. It was like, okay, well, this is the only game to ever make you not want to fight the final battle. I was like, well, I'm pretty sure there are probably this isn't the first game to make you not want to fight final battle or care about an antagonist or care about, want the antagonist and the protagonist to stop fighting. In some way, shape, or form, there's probably done it. And the problem is that this is such a subjective argument to make. Is like, no game has ever made me feel this way before. And it's like, well, then you're not talking about anything to do with anyone else, only what you've experienced. And we can't really... That doesn't add anything to the game or anyone else. That's only your experience you're talking from. Unless he's specifically talking about, you see the point of view from both the protagonist and the antagonist, and then it's not anything special on you.
It reminded me of a poor man's version of the MGS4 slap fight at the end, because it's just these two tired guys just beating the shit out of each other when they know they could have broken their necks quickly, but they decide not to.
Halo 5, didn't that also have you're switching between a protagonist and the protagonist antagonist? You were trying to get the point of view from both, and then that had a fight between the two.
Really?
It's like, well, Halo did it before.
Halo 2?
The shit Halo game. No, Halo 5, sorry. Halo 5.
Okay, right. The ending, I don't know. I have to go watch that. But Halo 2, I know.
Obviously, don't bother with Halo 5, but still, as shit as Halo 5 is, it still did almost the same thing with perspectives and even to the point where the two protagonists you've been seeing fight each other.
Oh, that's with Locke, and now I know what you're talking about. Okay, yeah. Ah, God, there's so many other games that do this. So this is nothing new. And there's so many better...
Yeah, people keep insisting it's brand new.
Yeah, there's so many other games where you play half the game, at least most of the game, as the antagonist. Or a section of the antagonist. So
do you know what they'll say no, though? So, if Halo 2 came out today, then people wouldn't like it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like as we've heard multiple times with Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, well, that's... I still have not watched Hello Greedo's video on that, and I never will, but,
Well, no, it's just like even Ryan Johnson says, well, if Empire Strikes Back came out today, then people wouldn't like it.
Can you imagine the most popular movie ever, and then just the sequel coming out? It's like, yeah, no one would watch it because the reviewers didn't like it. You're like, are you sure? Here's John Lemley again. Thank you, sir. I didn't want to kill the advertised enemies in Red Dead Redemption or Bioshock. Huh. I'm trying to remember the advertised enemies in Bioshock, aside from the Little Sisters and those crazy, what were they called? The Splicers? Really creepy looking men and women who were hunting for genes. Or Adam, rather. Trying to remember those advertisements. Yeah, it's hard to flash back to all those wonderful trailers. But yeah, they could have done lots of things in the video game format to allow you to get what you wanted out of this game with a simple choice at the end. So, but they can't do it. They want to tell a linear story where everything's violent, everything sucks, and there is no hope, except for the hope that this person sees in the moth on the guitar of Joel's. Tyler Preston, thank you, sir. You know why Lava Chen deleted his video on LiteratureDevil? Do I know the mind of a madman? No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Hey, do you know why this person did this thing? He's like, no.
I wish. Okay, that is a man with an English degree, and he rants and raves about other people online and he bakes his own video for over an hour. We do this for fun, for hours, because it's easy and fun, and it saves me days and days of work of doing it myself. So it's much more fun to talk to people with different opinions and sit back and relax. Maybe have a beer or water or whatever. It's fun. Lava Chan?
You know, friends who we talk to all the time and have fun and talk and have a laugh.
The people who are the bread tubers, whatever you call that, they are very angry and excited easily, and I don't know why. So, Smudboy, do you know why the sky is blue? Yes, I do. Why is this a question? Is this like the water is wet sort of thing?
I know that the sky's blue because it reflects off the sea.
Well, not exactly, but
That's the wrong way around.
No, that's completely correct.
oh, really?
Subjective. That's just how you perceive it, because color is subjective.
Subjective. Yeah.
Color is it's a social construct.
Yeah, there we go.
It's only blue because your eyes perceive it as blue. And what is blue other than what, as a society, we have defined it as? And it's completely arbitrary.
Does my color of blue look the same color as your color of blue?
You blow my mind.
What if, like, your version of blue was yellow? And you said, "Oh, look, that's blue." And I look at it, and where you see it as yellow, I see it as blue, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, you're right."
Smut boy. I want you to check the chat and on the Discord group. The latest thing that I'm seeing is what I've been staring at this entire time that we have been paused on this frame.
What are you guys doing in the Discord? Southpaw, you're just copying and pasting his face all over the place. What are you doing?
Because
He's got a very expressive face.
Are you going to put that in your next video about The Last of Us? You're just going to...
I think so.
All right. Do you know why George Lucas made Jar Jar, John Lemley? For the kiddies. I don't know. For the kids.
Because Jar Jar is the key to all this.
He's the key.
Mm.
What do you think? This thing. He does that. Makes sense. Sells some
Don't mind
toys.
him.
I have to watch all those old well, we actually did. We did watch them with Glib. All three. We did all three. So yeah, we did watch them all.
It's only subjective.
I could honestly talk about this game for an hour. I didn't even talk about the gameplay. Like, I love
Wow,
the
a
stealth
whole
mechanics, the acting and the performances. The graphics are incredible. There's parts in this game where I'm just like, bro, this looks like real life, man. It's by no means a perfect game, but it made me feel things that I have never felt playing a
fantastic.
game before. And
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever forget it. I hope that
Not
y'all
as good
enjoyed
as
this
it
video, even though it's something
did
different.
in
I don't know if
the
anyone
reveal
else is going to
trailer,
care about
because
this, but it's
obviously
honestly, I just
downgrades.
needed to make this for me. What did you think? Let's have an open conversation below. I would actually like to hear different people's analysis.
Oh God, everyone, go onto his video right now and say whatever you want. Okay, go crazy.
nice, no,
Don't say,
Don't
be
be
nice,
mean
don't
to
be
them.
dicks.
yeah, just say I respect your opinion. I respect your perspective. Here's mine. Especially if you've at least played the game. Please tell me that you've played the game. Okay, that's or at least you've watched through.
Watched it, yeah.
Yeah.
When they
Show
always
them
open it
last
up like
episode,
that, I want to have
It's
comments.
PlayStation.
I want you to talk about it. It's like, all right, open the floodgates, boys. Let's do it.
He's consented,
Exactly.
which is well what Ellie did.
Eventually, The Last of Us 2 will fade into obscurity, and then we can all just be excited for the fact that Demon Souls is getting a remaster.
There we go. That's the thing. That's what it's all about.
That's
The
what
original.
It's all been building for this.
Go back and play Demon Souls. Fuck The Last of Us.
You wanna break your spirit? That's how you do it.
Demon Souls.
That's-
Dark Souls.
Forget The Last of Us. This will break your spirit in seconds.
If you want a depressing but at least enjoyable gaming experience with a narrative that is just as bizarre but somehow more intelligible to follow and understand, play a Souls game.
That is true. And don't not only a Souls game, but play a Souls-like game. There's so many, and you don't even know they're out there.
Neo, Sekiro. Um,
Well, those are the mainstream ones. I'm talking about the obscure ones. Those are really fun to find.
what's the other? Code Vein.
Oh, that one is just anime crazy souls. Yeah, that is up there. And multiplayer. That's too. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, John Lemley, thank you, sir. Kanye trolling us on "Lift Yourself" made me feel things. Yeah, Kanye can do that. I don't know if he's trolling on all of his stuff, but you know, he gets to you. Those artists, man, you got to watch out for them. All right, guys, that was pretty good. I mean, we had some problems with some of his explanations, but he was honest. He obviously was affected by the game. I'm so glad there's someone out there who had an argument based off his own pathos. He felt something about it. He wrote it down. He made it intelligible. It wasn't the best explanation, but
At least it wasn't just 10 minutes of saying, "Well, you're just biased. Well, you're just biased. Well, if you weren't biased, blah 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 blah."
You
Yeah.
didn't
you're
understand
yeah,
what
you-
the game was about.
These kind of immediately disingenuous arguments where it's like it's your fault you didn't enjoy the game, for the same level of a lot of TLJ defenses we've had to come
right,
across.
it's the same tripe because they're saying it's my subjective interpretation. This didn't actually happen, but this is what I thought. I'm like, okay, you know what? Art can do that to your brain. I can accept that, even though it didn't actually happen. And we know there's better ways to do it than what was given. But hey, someone got a profound feeling of whatever out of it. I think that's a pretty good sign that you're either good at treating yourself through suffering, so you can see the beauty in stuff, even though it's just a dark, horrible experience. So it tells us more about him as a person than it does about the game, which is, again, you can do this. You can trick yourself through life and say all your relationships are great, and you see the bright side of all things. That's fantastic. But he did that, and I'm glad he's happy. And I don't know if did he say he's ever going to play the game again? I don't know, but he'll remember it for a while, which is good.
I'll just say, you know what? Good for him. And you know what? Nathan Zed, thank you for not insulting the people that didn't like the game. Thank you for not strawmanning people. Just, you provided your own perspective. You tried to offer, what you got from it. And I think that's fine. I think that is fine. I don't agree with your analysis, but that's fine.
Yeah, I think it's cool. So, John Lumley, thank you for the last super chat, hopefully of the stream. Happy belated birthday to OJ Simpson. Oh, boy. Oh, geez. Okay. Well, happy birthday, OJ, wherever you are. I think that's a wrap. Is there any other comments you guys like to share?
No, I'm good to go.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Shiny, you're good?
Hmm?
You're
Sorry,
good?
I zoned out for what's happening.
No, we're just closing off. Is there anything you wanted to say?
No, not really.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for tuning in. That's Shiny. That's Southpaw and Voice from the Radio. Voice, when are we doing our wonderful movie night? Do you have a date? Voice, you there?
Whenever you... Hello?
Hey.
Hello?
Voice, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Is there a date you've picked out for movie night?
No, I need to sit down with you folks and agree to when you want to subject yourself to the room. I haven't even found a good place to watch it yet.
Okay.
It's strangely hard to find.
Wow, really?
There's places, there's ways.
Okay, well, don't
I'll
worry.
keep looking.
Then I believe tomorrow we have our little private movie night with LiteratureDevil,
Right.
watching, what was it watch again? Hannibal or something?
Oh, boy. We'll find out.
Hannibal or American Psycho,
Yeah.
one of those two.
Well, anyway, we have a plan for Voice in the Box on his channel.
Voice in the box.
I'm so
Why
sorry.
did you keep calling him Voice in the
I keep
Because of Bill in a Box.
because they keep saying Lava Chan. I'm thinking, who's Lava Chan again? It's Voice in the Radio. Sorry about that. Voice in the Radio. Well, a box is technically a radio as well.
Sorry to appropriate you, Mr. Radio, sir. We didn't mean to racially insult you with the name, the horrible slur of
I
box.
screwed up my geodesic dome. I do apologize. Wrong shape. I shapeized you. What is that? Yeah, shapeophobe? No.
I have a question. What voice So is voice your first name and radio your last name, and then you have several middle names?
Yes.
In you have in
Oliver
the
is my double-barreled middle name.
Okay, well, hopefully, the next thing we'll do is announce the movie night, and I'll be posting it on Twitter and what have you when we actually see a live video, or not a live video, but rather
Lovely.
a video that Voice will put together. And
I'll keep looking, see if I can find a place to watch The Room.
yes, The Room it is. Okay. Well, anyway, if you guys have any suggestions for videos to cover next, I already have one from What Culture on The Last of Us 2, but please join the Discord, leave them in the suggestions, whether it's a video or a blog post, I'm more than happy to cover it, and we'll democratically look at it and see whether we'll cover it or not. But thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all the super chats. Hope you guys have a great evening and a wonderful was it a long weekend? No, it's just a normal weekend. Okay. I'm just so hot this evening. My mind is like, oh, what's going on? What time is it? What are we doing next? But thanks for tuning in. Have yourself a great day. Take it easy.